Hello, 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 hello. If you can see us, if you can hear us, you know the drill. Please let us know, because I don't trust any of this crap. Like just today, I was looking at YouTube stuff for Lorebeards, and it's all super wiggly wibbly and weird, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on, because YouTube.
Hello, everybody. It's Andy from Old Hammer here today. We are going to be covering the old world, which is perfect for a graybeard like myself. And by the gods, do I have some fucking opinions for you. Because for all these books don't necessarily drop a lot of lore. What they do drop is sometimes a oh, sometimes a ooh, and sometimes a So yeah, looking forward to this.
It is such a, every single one of these arcane journals is such a roller coaster ride where you'll just be like, oh, okay, this is pretty standard. And all of a sudden you'll just get whiplash from like a sudden sharp left turn or a sudden drop. And sometimes it's exciting and sometimes you hurt yourself. You never know what it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to these. Hopefully some of you out there have already got the book so you can read them along with us as we work our way through them. And if you don't worry too much. We are here to guide you through it step by step. My first note, though, is that whoever's writing these books, please remember that often these books are going to be picked up by someone for the first time. Please, please, please have a bit where you just explain who everybody is. Because if you're coming at some of these books for the first time, it's carrying on stories from other books with zero introduction and just dropping names everywhere. And if you haven't read them all, you're screwed.
Yeah, it's worth noting both of these books are rather unique in that. So the March, it's March Madness this week as we're going over March of Chaos and Battle March. So if you've never watched any of these streams before, basically the way we go through the arcane journals, because they're criminally short, is that we basically take it like mini section by mini section. So we take it not quite paragraph by paragraph, but close, and we just work our way through the book. So if you have it at home, it's really, really easy to follow along with what we're doing. As we'll be talking page numbers and stuff. I'll also occasionally try and throw some things up on the screen as far as some of the artwork and stuff. I will say you can tell we've definitely hit sort of a critical mass point, because the amount of new art that we're starting to get in these books is actually pretty high compared to some of the older arcane journals.
And some of it's lovely.
Yeah, there's a couple pieces Andy is going to be seeing the same time some of y'all is, because he hasn't actually gotten one of the books yet, so I had to send him a bunch of the writing
annoying.
From it.
It's currently winging its way to me. I ordered it in hope that it would arrive before the stream. It hasn't. However, I've perused all of its contents through a digital screen. Here, Andy, look at this bit. Look at that. So I've read it, but I've sort of read it fast. So yeah.
Yeah, but this should be just kind of a nice chill Tuesday night stream. This is probably one of the most relaxed ones, but you can also, you know us, we're gonna get to a paragraph and be like, what the hell were they thinking? Or, oh my god, I can't believe they brought this back up. So it'll probably get bizarrely exciting for all that it really should be kind of a chill day. But yeah, good stuff. And of course, those of y'all that were over my channel, I had to immediately just run off of a stream as I was covering all the new end time stuff, where they were showing how you could destroy the world. And it looks really cool. I'm not gonna lie, it looks really good. We also got the big confirmation that apparently they brought in Arcane's voice actor to redo almost all of his stuff. And they also recorded 5 hours of extra lines for Karl Franz. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. It's very exciting. But did Ryan make it to the meeting in time? Technically, yes. But I also was definitely not paying attention to anything that got said during the meeting, because I was too busy going, trying to set this stream up. Because I thought I had done it already, and I definitely hadn't. But that's okay, because other people were talking and that was the important bit. I was just there for legal reasons or something. But anyway, so today's gonna be like I said, just nice, fun, chill time. So without further ado, if we don't have anything, also as just a quick reminder to anyone listening, just because we've actually for whatever reason, the algorithm has been favoring me and Lorebeards recently. So I will say, if you haven't, make sure to like the stream. That helps us out a lot. Leave comments down, especially if you're watching this sometime in the future. And also, why don't you go over and give that little Lawhammer channel a look to give it a sub? It's at 9.6K, and when we get to 10K, we unlock the Balthazar Gelp Sunday stream.
We've been threatening this stream for almost 2 years.
Yeah, so we're 400 people away. Exactly.
Just 400 subs. And on that, just on the Lawhammer channel, I just want to bring this one from Sean. Thank you very much, Sean. Andy, I just wanted to thank you for Lawhammer. It inspired me to finally put together a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay campaign for my friends after wanting to branch beyond D&D and Pathfinder for years. I am delighted to hear that our crazy, insane ramblings have done anything to inspire anyone out there. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope it goes well.
Yeah, speaking of crazy, insane ramblings, I'm getting caught up on Lawhammer, and I literally, right before I came over to this, got blasted by a stream where an ogre fucked a bear. It just happens. You go, what? What are we doing?
Oh, just wait. You're just on that for where you are. You're only about 2 or 3 away from some of the craziest shit ever. So yeah,
it's
I'm looking forward
basically
to
a Baldur's Gate moment. It's very good. It's very funny.
Our game goes in proper daft places. Apologies if you have got, shall we say, sensitive sensibilities.
Hey, you know what? It's good to expand your horizon. It's good for you. It's good for you. Anyway, so without any further ado, I think we're going to go ahead and dive into all the little super chats and comments that are coming in before the stream, and then we're going to get going.
And again, this is supposed to be, today at least, it's supposed to be a nice, easy stream where we go through a book, discuss what it offers, and discuss what we think of the lore changes, of which there are a surprising number given how little information that we're actually given. And if you have comments, please do drop them in. If you like things that we don't like or dislike things that we do like, tell us, because it's all about what we all think, not just us. And if you're over on our Discord channel, do drop in and share your comments over there as well. Hopefully Hawk is out there and he can set up a thread over there for discussing these books.
Yes, and also, of course, I do have to start the stream by saying that rest in peace, Dolly Parton. She was one of the best.
You're
Americans.
kidding me. I did not know that. Fuck me. That's where fuck. Yeah. She's amazing. I am very sad.
She was one of the greatest Americans there ever was.
I could not agree more. I love Dolly Parton.
Dolly.
I'm wow. Rest in peace. Definitely. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's hit me pretty hard.
That's a good run. 80's a good run. Not as she deserved longer, but it's a good run.
Working 9 to 5. Right, okay, but let's just not start singing Dolly songs all the way through this. I'm currently a little bit blown away. I'm just going to sit back here and wow.
Yeah, we'll get through our intro stuff. Necromancer Cobalt, I'm excited to hear more Andy editing critiques. Also, I wonder if these ones beat the AI would have done it better issue.
I've already opened with my first one, which is, please remember that these books will be picked up by some people as their first introduction to the old world outside of their core set or their core rule book.
I will say, not the first book we're going to be looking at today, but the second book, March of Chaos. I genuinely feel like they took some of the feedback from some of the criticisms we've been throwing at them, because the book has a very different tone.
Completely
very different.
Yeah, agreed entirely. I actually quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good change. The first book, Battle March. I do want to give like full fairness to Battle March.
We're doing Battle March first or second?
Yes.
Battle March first.
We're going to release order.
Because Battle March makes more sense than Battle March.
Battle March. Sure. To be fair to Battle March, it's not intended as a lore book. It's literally like, hey, you want to play games with like a very small army? Here's the book for that. And then they decided to throw in some lore, which I was like, oh, okay. So that's why we're talking about
Here's a fight.
Yeah. Biofoot. I already did that. Yes, I technically made it. Pumpkin King Jack. Off topic. Just happened to be listening to your End Times 2 stream and hearing about the 40k Easter egg / cameos was hilarious. chuckled about Robert D. Guillemets Codex Imperialis in The Fall of Altor.
Yep. Yeah, there's lots of little bits. You know what? I quite like those. They're fun. They don't bother me too much.
That's harmless.
Yeah, they're harmless references that are often
Kabanda
really fun.
was not harmless.
When they're porting 40k directly in, I will admit to being slightly less interested in that, unless they are definitively saying, yeah, we're porting 40k in. This is all one big setting, which of course they're not. So thus doing these little teases often harms rather than reinforces the setting.
Prodocky, thoughts on Games Workshop focusing on smaller scale / Battle March versus the previous standard 2K format? Think this will affect the narrative or stories they tell? So what I want to say is Battle March it's technically its own kind of side game, which is what they've been doing with all their games, and it's because financially they are incredibly successful right now.
Yeah,
it is such an easier entry for newer people because the rules are more condensed. They also tend to be more balanced just because there's less stuff going on, so the rules tend to be better. Because from what I've heard, I haven't played Battle March yet, but from the people I know that play Old World that have tried Battle March, they're like, this game is awesome. Like, it is really fun.
So from an old hand at Warhammer Fantasy, this is just typical. And by that, I mean, it has always been this way. Warhammer has always shone at its best with either smaller groups of forces, which is why at heart it was a poor war game and a great skirmishing game, even though everything moved in blocks. It always worked really well at about that scale. But it also worked much better without many of the special characters and magic items and magic getting in the way of the game, which at smaller point scales always occurs. At big point scales, everyone goes, I'll take the biggest, coolest fucking character on a dragon and kick everybody's ass. And that one character hero hammers his way across the battlefield, and it makes the game less interesting, where tactics and gameplay often come to the fore when you're on smaller points or if there's bans on characters of various types. So this is a way for everybody to get involved with a more fun version of the game. Now, having said that, if past history is any indicator for how it will fall out this time, for all that is true, those who are playing the game consistently will almost always go with the bigger stuff because they want to use it and it's cool. So those 2,000 point games will almost certainly not go anywhere, or 3,000, or when I was a kid, 10 to 15 to 25, or even 50,000 point games, because I played Epic. Not Epic the game, just Epic Warhammer.
Yeah, honestly, the thing that would not surprise me, so they are going to be releasing box sets for all the factions that are like designed for Battle March.
Yeah.
But they're also going to be trying to use it as that, oh, now that you've played Battle March, why not come a little closer? Why not come a little further? Which traditionally tends to be a successful business model. We'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, I used to be a manager of Games Workshop that sold more copies of Warhammer Fantasy Battle than any other store in the company, and there was a reason for that. We used this as a primary vehicle for all the kids that are coming in. We weren't talking about 2,000 point armies for everyone. We're like, here, this is a 500, 700 point block. Build this, play this in the shop. Come to the shop, and we'll show you how they work, and you can see what Warhammer does at its best, and then you can build it up from there. Plus, the shop used to run games every single week where everybody could bring about 500 points. And that's not 500 points of characters, 500 points of stuff. So every week we were effectively playing this game, but with about 50 kids. Okay, all playing with 500 points on the same battlefield. It was chaotic, but it was super fun, and it gave everybody an idea of how their troops worked in practice. It's a great model. I think it's a great idea, and it's something that has happened again and again and again with Warhammer Fantasy down through the different editions. So it's no great surprise to see them finally cottoning on to something that we had cottoned on to in our store, like, what, 25, 30 years ago? Holy crap, I'm old. It's 30 years ago when we were doing that. So yes, this is not a new thing, but it is a successful thing from the past. And I can speak with some authority on just how successful it can be.
There you go. Sean Vital, you can't blame the Skaven for Lustria being a green hell, Ryan. Well, there's a difference between regular jungle green hell and irradiated, destroyed by falling warpstone comets irradiated or green hell.
I think you can't blame the Skaven for that.
Yeah, and I absolutely can.
Yep.
Super Sky Bro, I want that damn Guild Stream nerd sub. Love you guys. Well, we love you too. Thank you so much.
Yes, do drop over to Lawhammer. Do drop us a sub. That'd be appreciated.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're watching currently Lorebeards channel and you haven't subbed, holy hell, get pressing that button.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, totally. Some people.
Yeah. All right. So without further ado, we're gonna start with the book it's not very deep, but we're gonna go through it anyway. Of Battle March. There is a couple of interesting tidbits. So with Battle March, the vast majority of the book is dedicated to just like how do you play Battle March. So obviously we're not going to deal with any of that stuff. We're just going to focus on the lore tidbits. I will say though, once again, like the new art we're getting, genuinely great. Like this, like we got this thing of like greenskins attacking like an overturned.
I wish I'd scanned some of this stuff beforehand. Yeah, it's a gorgeous piece. This one,
great.
And this is where I'd like to really know who did it, but I'm going to call out something that I particularly dislike with Games Workshop's current policies, and that's that not a single contributor is listed. There's no artists, there's no writers. We don't know who does anything, and that feels so impersonal and disrespectful to the great talent that has gone into creating these books, because some of the images in here are absolutely gorgeous. Who did them? You basically have to find out for yourself, because the books themselves don't credit them. It is, I think, genuinely disrespectful.
It is. Yeah. And it's, I am not a fan at all about how modern Games Workshop books have kind of the audacity to say that this book was made by Games Workshop. It's like GW is not a person.
This isn't America where companies are people.
Yeah. So, all right, first, so we get to our first lore pages where we basically get the old world campaigns. So this is a 2-page spread that basically talks about the 2 major campaigns that have been going across the old world that the setting has been following us. The first being the War of Cetra's Fury, and the second being the Coming of the Chainmaker. This section is pretty... Honestly, if you've been following us here on Lorebeards as we covered all the other books, you already know everything that's on this. It's basically just a recap of the major campaigns.
But it does take a different angle. So previously, it's all, whoa, bombast, here we go, woo, woo. Now it's, and all the forces collapse and turn into smaller forces. And these smaller forces are preparing to face off each other across the vaults with Cetra or across... I found this entire setup really funny when I was reading it, because it's quite clearly, so we're going to support Battle March. Right, how are we going to do that? We'll just say that all the forces sort of collapse and turn into smaller forces ready to beat each other up, whether it's because, we've arrived and we notice there's chaos in the north. Split your forces up and attack chaos. The normal tactics are thrown out of the window to basically support the game at hand, which is fine, and that's what the book's there to do.
It's only fine.
It's cool. But it was so exceedingly obvious that each part basically said, this front that we've discussed before, did you realize that it's collapsed? And in fact, the Cetra's great force, which was one big body of absolute horror of undead, in fact, has collapsed into lots of smaller bits and has been raiding from the local undead and reinforcing themselves with different troops. And they're just smaller, man. And by the way, that great imperishable horde is definitely perished. It amused me no end.
Yeah, and you can kind of see it because, like, if you read the Chainmaker section where it's kind of like, and everything sort of breaks down, but then you read March of Chaos, and March of Chaos goes, just ignore that part.
Yeah,
don't worry about that.
So for the first 2 parts where you've got the Coming of the Chainmaker and you've got the War of Cetra's Fury, they're both thoroughly fine. They're just basically somewhat we know, but they've got a new slant, and the new slant is, that large war that we've been discussing for a while. That war has devolved into petty fighting between smaller groups, either because of one reason or another. And that's cool. They're supporting their book. It's not forced too much, but it really stood out for me when I read it.
Yeah. All right, and then we get to the genuinely interesting section of this book. So the brand new lore that literally comes out of nowhere is the Axbite Pass. And we get the lore on Spinecracker. Now, if you're like, wait, Spinecracker, haven't we talked about him? Yes, he's actually a very important character that we have not been told anything about outside of a little snippet in the Greenskins book where
Yeah.
they're basically like, oh yeah, Spinecracker is a guy that is leading, he's coming out of the Grey Mountains and he's leading a war into Bretonia. And that's the major Bretonian conflict right now. And if you go, isn't that like kind of a big deal? Yes, it is. And where do we actually learn anything about Spinecracker? This book.
Mhm.
In the Greenskin book, he is not a playable character, and they don't really talk about him. They talk about some other Greenskin characters making their way to him. This book, so like Wa Spinecracker, so this part literally details and tells us everything about who he is, where he came from, what his deal is, which is kind of insane. That this is just like stuffed in this random ass book. Like, I'm glad we got it. But here we get told that, like, turns out that Spinecracker isn't just some random greenskin. He is actually a big bad orc war boss from like 20 years ago who led a different Wa out of the mountains, fights King Lewin, who is not known as King Lewin Orcslayer during, so this would have been like the 2250s. King Lewin beats him in a one-on-one duel, doesn't manage to kill him, but beats him. Spinecracker runs away, his horde is shattered, and that's when he gets called King Lewin Orcslayer. So, like, we're learning more about King Lewin in this book than we did in the Bretonian book, because the Bretonian book doesn't even talk about him.
Yeah. I don't want to be negative, but it makes me quite negative about some of the previous books because of their lack of clear, concise direction and story building and world building that can be easily accessible and understood. And the fact that we're getting what is quite a fascinating story for the old world as a whole just suddenly dropped into a random, this is how you run smaller battles book. It's just perplexing to me. Now, do I dislike what's there? No, it's great. We get good old Durgath Spinecracker. Yeah, Durgath Spinecracker doing his thing. We get his backstory. We get backstory for the king. We get backstory for their fights. And then it flies into why he becomes the Orcslayer. It's great. I love this. But this isn't really where it should be.
No, this honestly feels like a part that should have been in either the Greenskins book or the Bretonian Arcane Journal. Or both.
Yeah, even just a mention.
It's literally one of the three major conflicts going on in the old world right now. This is just the one that hasn't really been explored until now. But like this section, this I think it's 4 pages. This is genuinely great lore. Like, is it worth buying the book at full price? I would say no. But
it's a double page spread, so if you think 2 pages worth of description of an orc Wa that we should have had described previously is worthwhile, then yes, go purchase it for this alone. Personally, it was almost an eye-opener that either somebody has looked in and gone, we've got some big holes and we need to start patching them, or alternatively, I actually don't know how we got this here, of all places. It's just weird. It speaks to a lack of clear and concise line building and release building, as in, here is the next 10, 15 books that we're going to release, and this is how we're going to make sure that the first one also supports the 10th one by, cross-pollination of information. I want to drop one other point here because we discussed it loosely on the Nagash stream. In the Nagash story, by the time the Undead Army List had come out and we learned the full glory of the great necromancer Nagash, most of the army list, barring the Empire Army List, had discussed Nagash at one point. We'd even had a special character directly influenced by Nagash. It was an unfolding story over multiple releases that got capped with the Undead release for the 4th edition of the game. There was clear line planning going on. It might not have been very coherent. It might not have had a lot of planning on their side. I don't really care. It landed well. This doesn't. It's literally shoehorned in to fill a massive gap that they'd left open in previous books. And it's shoehorned in a way that many people might just miss.
Yeah, so I'm going to break each of these down and we're going to go through the nitty-gritty details because this is worth doing the nitty-gritty. And then we're going to talk a bit more about why we're kind of like, what are they thinking putting this here? So we got the first section of Wa Spinecracker, which explains his first invasion. And Durgath Spinecracker is actually built as a pretty fun greenskin character, of that he leads this great mighty Wa down out of the Pale Sisters. and he crashes up against Corone and he sacks Corone because he's just got a big old wall and the Bretonnians are completely unprepared for it. And you go, oh, this is pretty cool. But it says
the equivalent is like, we've just sacked Altdorf. Okay, Corone is not a simple thing to sack.
Yeah, and it does a really good job of talking about that. Although he's very he's got a very kind of low cunning to him. He's more on the brutal Gorky side. He's doing well until he goes up against a genuine threat of King Lewin, who surrounds him with a bunch of knights, and then they just basically obliterate his horde. Just charge, hit, charge, hit, charge, hit. And they tear him apart because he has no tactics. He has no tactics. He has no strategy. So he gets isolated against the king, gets his ass kicked in the section talking about Orc Slayer, and then he flees the field. But the thing that this does is actually builds up Spinecracker as kind of a fun character. As Corone is being rebuilt and the knights are all talking about like how great they are and how everything's worked out, Spinecracker is up in the mountains licking his wounds, and he's getting older and he's getting smarter because they didn't put him down. And this story does like a really good job of showing the danger of green-skinned characters that survive big losses.
You got to put them down. I think the very, very last words of the second section very much sum up that for me when it says, for Spinecracker, however, who's just had his ass handed to him, the campaign ahead would be joyous, as in what comes after having his ass handed to him. He had learned much from past battles, and he was keen to show his enemies who was boss. So he's already, beyond licking his wounds, he's like, let's go for more. And he's ready to get kicking ass and chewing gum again, because such is the way of Greenskins, prepared to build up another mighty Wa behind his lead, but this time with more awareness of his failings and what went wrong. Because orcs, contrary to how they're often presented in some other publications, are far from stupid. In fact, when it comes to war, they're often, well, strangely enough, incredibly brutally cunning. And that cunning can come to the forefront.
Yeah, I also really, really like how they didn't do what I honestly expected them to do of saying that like he came back after 5 years or whatever. Like it's several decades of him rebuilding his power in the Grey Mountains. Like there's several decades of peace in King Lewin's reign, but he didn't cut the head off the snake, and it gets way worse. So this takes us into the A Gathering Wa section, which talks about the whole thing with the Wa and how it's being carried by the winds of magic. Even though it's not magic itself, the book does keep them separate, but it says it is carried by the winds.
So I particularly like this bit. I'm going to again pull out a quick quotation here, because it's something we've discussed multiple times with Wa magic and how it isn't the normal winds of magic. And it says right there, Wa energy builds around them, quickly disrupting the winds of magic and creating a beacon of fury that can be sensed by shamans many leagues away. And in response, orcs and goblins start to gather. So basically we've got this build up of Wa energy, and the orcs start being attracted to it as their blood starts to thrum when Gorka Mork is beginning to call to them as the big scrap ahead is coming, and they're all getting very excited. War, war, war. What's it good for? Having fun, or at least as far as the Greenskins are concerned. And the book here does something that Games Workshop very rarely does, and it states quite bluntly, Wa magic, yeah, winds of magic fucked. They're just getting pushed aside all over the place because it's different. And that's really rare with GW books, where they often try to conflate Wa magic with the color magic, because there are many people in Games Workshop who want all magic to be color magic and everything else can be just dumped out the window. This paragraph pretty much stands contrary to that.
Yeah, I love it. I genuinely love the reinforcement that there are two different systems, that they interact. The Wa energy is interacting with the winds, but it's just full on. It's like screwing the winds, which is great. From there,
stuff is happening. Brilliant.
Yeah, from there we get to the final section on the 2-page spread, where we get the brutal but cunning passage, and this introduces us basically to Drazgog Skull Smasher, who's basically the main character of this book. He's kind of the character you follow for what is a Battle March campaign like. And the thing is, I actually still really like how this is handled, because it's doing a good job of demonstrating how a true Wa works. The main central Wa is up in the north of the Grey Mountains, But just because of its existence, there's now hundreds of still WAs. They're smaller, but there's still WAs happening all over the place that are veering this direction. So Drasgog is leading his own WA, taking advantage of all of the chaos and uncertainty, and he just basically is using Axbite Pass as a predatory ground, where he's just ambushing caravans to get free loot, which is great.
It's great. I love this. And it also speaks to what the entire book is about, which is there's big campaigns going on in Warhammer, but let's focus in on one small little force and show how it might manifest inside the game. And that's what this little warlord and his little WA is all about. It's showing how these smaller forces impact the larger game of the old world Warhammer. And I think that's great. I think it's really nice because it's showing you with specific example how you can build forces that are far smaller and still have bigger impacts within the greater armies as a whole. Yeah, it's good. It's fun. I liked it. This bit was I found this bit cleaner than the bit that came before, which was basically just a rehash of Cetra and the Chainmaker. But they're also on smaller scales because they have to be. Where this one was nice and clean. It was like, here's a big WA that we hadn't discussed, and here is an example of how Battle March can work within that WA. It's just nice and clean. This bit was clearly designed for this, I presume, where the other ones felt much like we're just patching it up to try and show how you can use Battle March rules using these other forces too.
Yep. Then we get on to the Guardians of Helmgard section, which basically just talks about, once again, I actually like the world building of this section, where it talks about how news of the WA Spinecracker is spreading. And while the younger soldiers are like, oh, well, that's great that Bretonia is at war with the Greenskins. That means we don't have to worry about Greenskins. And the veterans go, that's not how Greenskins work, lads. This is not good news for us. But like just showing like a nice little tidbit of what the world is, of older guys being like, no, when Greenskins get riled up anywhere, they get riled up everywhere.
Yeah, I particularly like
nice
as well that it ends with that little section there ends with quite clearly how bad things are getting, because already as all of the orc raids are beginning to build up in the pass, Sigmarites and various other flagellant orders and similar have already pulled out their placards saying the end times are here, because the one thing the Empire loves to do is think that every other weekend is the end times. The end is nigh.
The Empire loves its doomsayers.
And they're out there. The end is nigh. Because obviously we've got all manner of horror coming down from the mountains with a green tide of nastiness and big choppers. So yeah, good stuff.
Yep. Then from there we get into the mountain section, where you basically start having the doomsayers and flagellants kind of sort of get somewhat drafted. They're like, well, we're not going to stop them from helping.
Flagellants.
Yeah. And another thing I actually really do like about this is so you get kind of the other character fighting Drasgog, which is good old Captain Weisgerber. Gilbert Weisgerber, or I guess it'd be Weisgerber.
Yeah, it'd be Weisgerber. It's almost Weisgerber, but it's not a double S.
Yeah, and you basically have a sign of him, like he's running around the mountains looking for news. They're finding villages burned, caravans sacked. I do like that there's mentioned that the beastmen are getting more agitated and more active. There's chaos beasts getting more agitated, roaming around, and he's like, this shit's bad. This shit's real bad. And the thing that is also good about this, so we get to Duel on the Bridge, where we don't get just a super easy, like, oh, the Empire simply wins. Like the Empire sends out a little squad of guys with flagellants by their side, and they're gonna heroically win the day. Duel on the Bridge makes it pretty fucking clear pretty quick that all of the Empire groups that are not inside a fort, they are completely fucked.
Yep. Yeah, nice. Good details.
Yeah, these guys run into Drasgog, and basically all they're able to do is buy enough time to send like messengers back to Helmgart to say, holy shit, holy fuck, this is bad. Send help.
Yeah, I agree completely. And what I found particularly interesting about this whole section is unlike many of the previous books or other books that we may be moving on to, where often there are 3 paragraphs underneath their header, which is pretty much a universal way of writing for the old world, apparently. It's just filled with nonsense, wasted words. Each one of these paragraphs, as we make our way through, is trying to further the story, try to tell you what's going on, and it's introducing each earlier part before it dives into the detail of it. There's no point where you go, who the fuck are these people? Because it says, and then this person came along, who is this? And then this happened. Okay, which then impacted this person over here. So we get the captain, we get the sergeant, we realize who they are together, and we know who the Orc Warlord is, and we know who underneath that Orc Warlord, the mini-wa that's making its way up Axbite Pass. We know all of it. And this stands in stark comparison to what we're going to be going on to with the next book, which is bluntly so much heavier on the lore, but equally, even though there's so much more of it, it's significantly less deftly handled.
Yep. And then it takes us into the final little section of this before we'll just look at like various scraps, which is Forgotten Battles, which is genuinely a super fun section because it talks about how basically in the later months of 2276, Drazgog gets worse and worse and worse. And more knights are showing up to Montfort, even though more knights are needed up north, and more Empire guys are showing up to Helmgart, and they keep building up their defenses. We get mentioned the Grey Mountain Dwarfs are getting dragged into the conflict. Elves, who are protecting their caravans, going from the elven colonies of Bretonia over land through the passes into that part of the Empire. Fun, which indicates that clearly the ocean further north is getting less safe because of whole Friedel the Chainmaker stuff. They're getting attacked by orcs. And the final paragraph paints a pretty dire picture where it talks about, so there are beastmen obviously being active. And then it ends with telling us what happens, which is the final battle between Drazgog and Captain Weisgerber's company would take place at the village of Gimmelwald in the foothills of the Grey Mountains. There, the disheveled remnants of Weisgerber's company fought bravely to the last, defending the villagers and hoping to prevent the orcs from bursting into the lowlands, where Drazgog's violent campaign would continue unabated into the heart of the Empire. They lose.
Yeah, they lose,
man.
Great. Yeah, they lose, and they tell it all in a matter of about that's only about 2 double-page spreads for the whole thing for that base camp.
Well, it's a really efficient use of.
It's a good efficient use of the space. You get the beginning, the middle, and the end of this particular campaign, and the orcs winning and pressing deeper into the Reichland, but also so that we can understand that the campaigns that the book is designed to support is not just about greenskins and the Empire. They say also there was dwarves and there's elves, there's chaos out there as well. They discuss the beasts of chaos that are setting off in the forest, and all of the agitation there is pulling them out of the forest into the conflict, as well as they feast upon corpses or foolish soldiers moving from one place to the next without proper protection of a castle around them. It's super fun. It pulls it all together really neatly, and it also importantly supports the game style for the old world that they're very much trying to push with this book. The storytelling here has been carefully chosen, carefully deployed, and I would say pretty carefully executed. This is one of the better examples of the journals coming together with lore to support the rules that are to come. There are very few pages of lore in this book, and I'm almost dismissive of the book because of that, because clearly I am a lore-y guy. Having said that, though, I do think it was pretty well handled here. And how many times have I said that about the old world?
Yeah. And we'll talk about more in a little bit, but we're going to grab out some comments and super chats and stuff.
Yeah, genuinely pretty good.
Getting Gleeful, future what if stream. What if the earthquakes had never wrecked the Dawi? They were still in bad shape past the War of the Beard, but it would not have been as bad. It would be dramatically different. I believe that's already on the list. I'm
yeah,
sure.
And further, that's probably a bigger thing because those earthquakes were a part of a far bigger event that was taking place right from Lustria all over the world.
Because you don't realize it, but if the earthquakes hadn't happened, that means the Skaven's great engine would not have exploded, and it would have gone off, which would have caused its own problems.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a really interesting story to tell in all of that, and it might even be a what if special because it has more than one branch that would have to be resolved, and one of them would be what happens to the dwarves when they don't suffer from that enormous truly epic loss that comes with those earthquakes.
Yep. Mr. CJX. Hi, Lorebeards. Sorry for off topic. Never apologize. Thank you very much for the super chat. We really appreciate it. I need a plot device for a fanfic taking place in the old world. Some magical analog to a 40k stasis field. Was something like this ever mentioned in the lore? And he has 2 other follow-ups. Part 2. The only thing I found so far is a short mentioning of Illuminus, one of the ancient gods of order, who is meant to preserve things in his shining. Part 3. I imagine this artifact to be a sort of sarcophagus where a body or a living person can be preserved unaffected by time. To what magic or culture or faith should I attribute it? Elven, Dwarven, and the final part, an artifact filled with shaiish. It is not a stretch too far to imagine the witch hunters of known reluctantly using this device from time to time to capture some dangerous prisoners for further questioning. Thank you.
So, yeah, you've actually hit upon one of the big ones, which is the Great Casket, which held a goddess alive in stasis for uncounted centuries beneath the city of Prague. And this was originally posited in a comic with Caleb Dark, who was a follower of Malal, the 5th chaos power of whom we should never talk about ever. And it was directly tied to Illuminus as well. So go check that particular story, Caleb Dark story, if you want to see that. However, I also think you've hit upon the other most obvious route, which is beyond the making something up. It's an artifact of the old ones. It is some ancient magic being deployed by a wizard who has studied it himself for many, many years and has decided to just unleash it now in a way that makes no sense, rather than just making up something and building up some background. The obvious magic for this is shaiish. Shaiish, which is all about stasis, slowing down, and also is wrapped up in, to use the 40k-isms, some of the old forms of 40k magic as well, where you used to have warp manipulation, the ability to move and shift time using the purple wind of magic in Space Hulk, which is a very old game. So shaiish is a very obvious route.
Yeah, there's actually some really fun inspirations you can find. Like there's a short story that was tacked on, but yeah, Arianka's coffin. Yep. There's a short story that was tacked on to the end of the Sigmar trilogy by Graham McNeil, where he talks about Sigmar's final battle with Krell. And in that battle, they discover a sarcophagus designed by the ancient Hekarans that was left in the Grey Mountains in a forgotten city that is so saturated with magic, and it's got a Tomb King in it, and he's still kicking. Because when they open it, he's not in a good mood. So something like that would not be that strange in the grand scape of the world. Like for the average person to come across it, it would be horrifying and probably a really, really weird device. But yeah, Shaish's ability to slow or just flat out stop time is very in there.
Totally.
And it would be really, really dangerous to mess with.
And just so that we provide an answer that's perhaps beyond what you've already considered, you also have the multiple examples across fiction of using ice to freeze someone in a specific point of time, which is, of course, picked up by Total War as well, and they do it to Boris Arson. Radiboka is literally frozen in ice to arrive again at a later date, and you can do that. Take a look at, say, for example, Aang in The Last Airbender, frozen for 100 years. No reason that you couldn't take something similar and wrap that up into your tale. It fits with the existing lore for how ice magic could potentially be deployed out there. So if you're, again, deciding something over in Kislev or heading something in that direction, you've got an easy option there too.
Yeah, and there's of course like more disgusting options as well. Like there are artifacts of Nurgle that could keep someone alive through awful
Did
means.
you have to?
But like there's a lot of weird things out there. But yeah, time manipulation is not that rare.
Yeah, it's kicking around all over the place, particularly because Warhammer's background setting is full of timing inconsistencies. So you can argue that the core canon of work already supports time travel.
Stephen Lucas, Cetra's Wrath setups for Sand and Snow for Viking Behind the Back. Yeah, so this is something we've talked about in the past I really, really, really hope Games Workshop is going to keep the War of Sand and Snow canon, because it would be a very good way to wrap up why Cetra leaves like Bretonnia. I will say my hope, which this book, funny enough, plays a funny role in, of I suspect this book might end up being kind of important for laying the foundation between Spinecracker and King Lewin's relationship. Because what I hope happens, and this is just me, but what I'm hoping happens is we get to see King Lewin kill Spinecracker, like put him down, which is why Spinecracker's not a playable character, because he's going to die very quickly.
Yep.
But when he does that, he's either wounded or he's isolated or something happens, and it builds up to King Lewin faces off against Cetra, and Cetra kills him. And Cetra basically has the, haha, I win. And he goes back to Nehekara just in time to kick off the events of the War of Sand and Snow, which is a really, really fun war that leads to Cetra's invasion of Norska and gets him very occupied and doing very different things. I really, really hope that's what's going to happen, but we'll have to see what happens. Sticks and Stones, thanks so much for becoming a member. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Appreciated. You kick ass.
Tetris, story still feels very ad hoc. Still loving the old world, though. Yes, it does.
I agree completely. For all I appreciate the addition that was added with this book, let's say, I really do wish that it had been properly woven into the overall story in a more clear way, because as Ryan was just suggesting, it is a great way of leading into other events that have been highlighted in previous versions of Warhammer. It'd be really nice to see them come to the fore here. And if that was the intent from the beginning, what Ryan was just talking about there, then really the Greenskin book should have had this stuff mentioned. It doesn't need to have the character sheets for them or stats for them, whatever, but at least this is what's happening up there. I mean, there's tons of characters in the old world that they've not provided stats for, that they're talking about again and again and again. I'm looking at you, Ashlyn. They're all over the place, but yes, no, we just have ourselves a quick drop off in this book, which again I super appreciate. I liked what they did with it.
Yeah. Yeah, full agree. Alex Russo, is Sigmar giving any blessings during this period of time? Are blessings granted by the gods the result of their conscience? Oh boy. So are there people that are unleashing blessings of Sigmar during the old world? Yes. All over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Are blessings granted by the god the result of conscious decisions by the gods?
Oh boy. So
look, my worm of cans just popped open.
Yeah, this is a question. And this is a question that we could probably spend an entire stream discussing. So let's just simply give it it is unconfirmed one way or the other. And some books state unequivocally it's one way, while others state unequivocally it's probably not. So the answer to that is uncertain, and inevitably people come up with their own answers because of that.
Yep. Getting gleeful. I've said it before, but Games Workshop needs to use spreadsheets or mind maps more with group meetings to work out how these things connect and are planned out.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they sort of have. I mean, I can't imagine that there isn't somebody who's responsible, presumably, for the vast majority of the narrative, who hasn't sat down, poured through books, maybe checked wikis instead of source material, given some of the choices made, and come up with a whole host of this is what we're going to do. What the line appears to miss is an overall clear editor who's not doing the writing. A very clear lore expert who looks in and says, you've missed something in this book. You've got a core character beat coming up in 3 books' time that we discussed at our meeting last time. You probably want to drop a paragraph in this section or embellish this paragraph so that we understand this stuff is coming. Give us some basic foreshadowing for all of this stuff. And you also haven't introduced some core characters here, and you've got a lot of repetition, so we can easily cut down much of what you've written, for all I know you love it, to ensure that we can include all the rest of the stuff to provide additional coherency. Because one thing that the journals do frequently is duplicate something that's been said previous in the book already, and they reiterate certain facts because they're the core facts when they're writing that bit, to the point that in some of our previous reviews we've said it feels like it's been written by more than one person. One person's written this section and another writer's come in and just rewritten it in a weird way and slightly contradicted what came before. And we had some very interesting comments to say about that in some of our previous videos. But this book doesn't have that issue. This book is not wasting its time. Yes, it's reiterating information in other books, but that's okay because someone might just buy this single book for the rules and they need to have the story effectively re-summarized. So thus we have Cetra's War re-examined, and we have it re-examined through the view of the rules that book's presenting. I think it's pretty neat. I think they did a pretty good job here, but elsewhere, no. So possibly they're tidying up. We'll find out when we hit the next book.
Yes, and there is a couple more things we're going to look at this book before we're done, but
yeah, definitely.
Do agree. Azure Shadow feels like Games Workshop is intentionally dispersing lore to get people to buy books they otherwise have no interest in buying, or they're actually scatterbrained. I don't think it's well. The first option is very possible, but it's I don't think it's necessarily that malicious of intent. I think it might come from more of a let's make sure to include something that everyone would want out of this book, which can result in this.
For this book, it's relatively essential because this is a book that is designed for more than one faction. All players want to pick this book up to create their own little mini campaigns using tiny little armies. So go buy this book because there is something in here that's hopefully going to suit you. And they don't quite manage to hit that mark very well in that they don't take in all potential forces and say this is how they could manifest, but they do a good job of giving you lots of examples so you can go do it yourself. Now, to the broader point, it feels like they're dispersing lore across all the books to make people buy them. I would re-pitch that and say it a different way because that sounds very negative. And I don't think that Games Workshop are doing this negatively. What they're doing is they're trying to make every book contain cool shit for that book. So if you happen to buy that book, it's full of cool shit for that book. And that sometimes means it will be going off in squirrely little details of lore. And every book has lots of squirrely little details of lore. So thus we want to buy all of them. That's cool. That's great. I'm down with that. I think that is not a bad thing because it makes every book stand alone. If they are doing the same thing with every book, releasing the same facts in every book, they would become dull. They become boring. We'd buy the one that we needed, maybe. I presume we don't just find some place online with all the lists are available for free. Why would you bother buying them and building them up for a collection? I think the general direction is great, personally, but I think the execution, particularly of the books so far, mostly has been deeply variable, with some successes and some quite obvious failures.
Yeah, I agree. Fully agree on that. Fire Snake, the changeling infiltrates the Silver Pinnacle, not to spread chaos, but to hear the latest gossip. Probably true.
I'll do it.
Probably true.
I like that. That's amusing.
Vitalis Decius would love to build your own end time stream in celebration of the DLC. With the chat together, what you could come up with would be super interesting. That would be super fun. That's something we might do on a coming Tuesday. The Tuesday schedule is not quite as horrific as the Sunday schedule, though there is a couple of things we have to badger out first. But we have a month. So we might do this the Tuesday before it comes out. That could be a fun way to celebrate.
I think that'd be super fun because if we've got end time stuff coming up, we're just as excited to talk about it and talk about different ways it could manifest as you are. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, Captain Magma. What if Be'lakor didn't fail in Albion? The world, it would have been the end times. It would have been an
had a plan.
Scenario.
Be'lakor had a clean plan, and that plan arguably failed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you would. The biggest thing to remember with Be'lakor is he's fun to meme on. He's really, really fun to meme on because he has plans that if he gets a 100% success rate, he basically brings about the apocalypse. But regardless of what percentage of the success rate he gets, he always walks away with what he wanted.
Yeah. And again, for those of you who are Lawhammer fans, our most recent episode directly dives into how Be'lakor could possibly have any influence as someone who's so antithetical to him. It's a rather stylized event, but nevertheless, it does dive into that. So yeah, worth a look at.
The Humble Scholar, do you think the halflings may get a small lore revamp during the Storm of Chaos?
Storm of Chaos is what I'm landing on.
I don't
think that's quite right.
Yeah,
is that the end times material?
Yeah, I imagine you're talking about the old world, maybe?
Maybe.
I'd imagine their resistance to chaos would make them ideal scouts for the army. I'm not sure what you're specifically referring to. I will say that in a world that was well written, halflings are normal parts of imperial armies. And if you're dealing with like a horrifically corrupting situation, it probably wouldn't be surprising to see halflings being like having field wardens being the best troops for that.
I'm going to counteract that and say, yeah, you'd think that, but your average Empire general will be like, well, what the fuck use are they? I've got proper men who properly trained. I've got outriders. I've got proper noble gentlemen. Those halflings don't know fuck. They can piss off. Go on, get them army. They're just greedy. They're just going to try and steal our supplies, and they're going to steal our stuff. No, we don't need them. One of the great problems of the Empire is it's not a unified force where all the best troops are doing the best things. They make sometimes high elves look organized. So yeah, for all you're right, the actual chance of it coming about the way that it should do is relatively low. And that's to the benefit of an end time story, because one of the biggest problems with the Warhammer world as a whole is not only does it not work well together, it's basically eternal war with each other as much as anything else. One of the things I quite enjoy, for example, with the book that we're currently discussing, is it's got one little snippet explaining about the elves moving through the old world, and they don't describe the dwarves and the elves as being, you know, a bit snippet with each other. They literally say their old enemy. Yeah. And they're like getting ready to literally attack them. Attack them, not just we don't like you, fold our arms, literally assassinate and kill them. That's what they're thinking of doing, because the good guys, so to speak, aren't. They just aren't. Everybody is at each other's throats, and that makes the end times all the more inevitable, because people don't want to work together, and what they really need is someone like Karl Franz with a Galmaraz resistant table.
Yeah. So the old world specifically, I honestly, with how the old world's been going, I genuinely would not be shocked to see the return of the halflings. The old world has been very not subtle about really bringing out like, hey, remember this mini from 20 years ago? Remember this selection of mini from 30 years ago? And the halflings are probably going to end up being part of that. Now, will they continue to be a part of the range in the long term? Ooh, who could say?
I mean, they're going to constantly be one of those things that sit in the background. There were various people at Games Workshop through its various stages that hated halflings, despised them, and didn't want them in any Games Workshop product. I have spoken to people who have said that to my face, and as a roleplay writer where halflings are one of the core character types, I had to basically say, sorry, but we're still using them until Games Workshop literally says you can't. And the licensing department were constantly left with every edition previously, including them, and the expectation from the fan base that they'll be there. So they were like, every time, well, you know, we could remove them, but we probably shouldn't. And they don't. So halflings are not popular in many quarters, and things like gnomes even less popular. So while, yeah, this edition of the old world looks really likely that it will include all manner of fun and cool elements that other versions of Warhammer Fantasy have pushed to the side, particularly halflings who have barely been seen since 5th edition Warhammer. They basically exist on the periphery and nothing more. This edition is quite happy to depict them, discuss them, and drop them in much the same way that something like Total War is happy to discuss them, but not necessarily make entire units of them.
Yeah, so we'll just have to see what the future holds.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to put a pause on those for a minute, and we're going to get back into finishing the Battle March book. So from here,
look at the time. Good move.
You get all the scenario pages. Whatever, we're gonna skip those. Those are just little things.
I seem to recall there was one thing on the. No, there wasn't. The scenario pages. The only thing I'll mention on the scenario pages is that they basically just do a hodgepodge mixture. Here's some orcs fighting Empire. Here's some dwarves. Here's some elves doing things. Here's a quick battle. Go play it out and see how it goes. It's fine.
Yeah, it's whatever.
It's fine.
Then they get into a kind of a surprising section that's really easy to miss if you're not paying attention, where they basically go over an example army for each of the factions. But instead of just being like, here's an example army, let's move on, they actually give lore blurbs on all of them, which is
super cool.
Like out of nowhere, it's super cool. So we'll skip the first two because there's no new information where they talk about the Helmgart Wardens under Versberger, and then they talk
I'm going to make one
the...
comment on that. And it's just because I can't let it pass without making comment. The state soldier was introduced by Magnus in multiple versions of the lore, yet state soldiers are still all over the place. And it just makes me go, that's a shame because it ruins some of the impact that Magnus had on the setting.
Yeah, I'll say I have a thing on that. I genuinely am so curious when we get around to the redo of the Empire range, because I'm really curious if when they redo the Empire range, are they going to do the, hey, we're just going to re-release the range as it exists, but like with new minis, or are they going to go, oh, here's the actual units that would have existed during this time now that we're making new minis, and if they're just going to wipe all this stuff out.
I really like that. Now, I'll admit, I don't see it happening for consistency reasons, for the fact that a lot of these plastics are still fine and they'll just want to keep on reusing them because it's cheap and it allows the old world to run cheaply rather than really expensive. It significantly mitigates risk. But nevertheless, the range for the Empire does not in any way reflect what the old world should be.
No, the Empire old world range is like the least lore accurate range.
It's really strange. Having said that, though, if we accept the old world as the new lore, this is the new standard, and we now have to say, why the fuck hasn't the Empire changed at all for 250 years? For 250 years, they're fielding the same army. It's really strange, where previously a whole ton of the weaponry that the current Empire army is using hadn't been invented yet. The state army model hadn't been invented. What it was individual noble lords and the various banners that they could pull to them from their underlings. And they would come in with whatever troops that they could gather, various types of half-trained, well-trained, medium-trained soldier types. It was much less organized because they had yet to bring out the equivalent of England's new model army. They hadn't yet got the state army formations put in place because Magnus, after the Great War Against Chaos, realizes the enormous weakness in the Empire's standing army, and he makes the Empire have a consistent, perpetual standing army, the state army models. This is probably now old lore. This is probably now something we just have to accept the old world has overwritten, unless they come in with a later edition and say, actually, we're going to overwrite it again.
Yeah, which it's happened before, but we'll have to see what happens. Which, I mean, old world's still selling great. The pre-orders for the Chaos Dragon, which is a $200 model, completely sold out.
Yeah,
you can buy it now, but like the pre-orders got wiped. It was crazy.
So much money.
Then a little later, we get on to the Throng of Karak Ziflin, which is under it's under the Thane Sven Gaddickson, who looks suspiciously like Belagar Ironhammer, but don't worry about it.
Doesn't he just?
Yeah. From this, you just get like a nice little like lore tidbit of the dwarfs defending their own interests, all the things that are their own interests. So you've got the things like lumber camps, breweries on the riverbanks, protecting the various mines and armories and stuff. And it's like, good, cool. Just nice little world building for the dwarves.
I'm really glad you called this bit out because I had it marked. I've got my notes here on my screen. I had it marked for just saying good. It's just nice to get lovely little world building details in a way that some of the other lists just don't do. The other lists are all about the grand story, often from a very, very skewed angle, and then just straight into it. Here's the army list with a couple of banner details down the left or right margins to give you an idea of what the heck they're talking about. This is nice. It's just some lovely detail, and I wish there was more of it inside the journals.
Yeah, well, honestly, more of this, like just 2 pages in each of the arcane journals, just giving like
what a difference it makes.
Localized stuff is nice.
It really is, and I know we're almost overstressing a point with very little to actually discuss on, because the actual details it presents, okay, here's some dwarves and here's the things that they do in the mountains. It's largely stuff that those who know the lore well know. And it gets reinforced. It provides that little bit of world building detail. But for those who are coming to it for the first time, this is new cutting edge shit. And this new cutting edge shit has been missed in almost all the other journals. meaning that those who are playing it often have no idea what they're playing at all unless they move into other products so that they can hopefully understand it. And often nowadays, the only place where such details are covered are things like old novels, which are 200 years out of date in the far-flung future, so to speak, or roleplay books, which are equally 200 years out of date, except for the new old world ones. It's good. It's good to see this shit in here.
Yep. Next page, we get the Beast of the Reichwald with the Brayherd of Dalgu. This one also really fun. Of that, it does a good job of explaining. I really like with the Beastmen. They didn't go they're chaos and they're out here to do chaosy stuff and rituals. No, they're just regular Beastmen that are super pissed off about everyone coming on their territory, and they just fucking hate. They're just disgusted by the trappings of civilization. They just hate it. They just
classic
hate the
Beastman stuff. It's good.
Yeah, and then I love that it ends on such a kind of a alarming final note of carried away from the forest by their wrath. The Beastmen soon found them that unprotected farmland and homestead stood before them like, oh no.
Oh no. Again, only 3 paragraphs here, particularly because they've got the tactics and strategies take up a chunk of that, so that's 1 paragraph of it. But again, it's lovely little cart for details for the armies at hand, and it takes up relatively little space while providing a great deal of depth to the book as a whole. I kind of love this.
Yeah, this book almost has one of the best, like, a good amount of pages that's just good intro stuff for people that have never read any Warhammer.
Yeah, and it's the right book for it as well, given that the core direction of this one is to try and attract people into playing the game with a smaller number of units. So there's the smaller number of units. This is how they work. And here's a little bit of key detail about these individual armies. Why don't you collect one of these if any of these entice you? Those 3 paragraphs are basically there to say, do you like the sound of these? Because if you do, this is what you should collect. Away you go. They're lovely little snapshot dips into the lore, but also a snapshot dip into the game. I think this, unlike many of the previous books we've discussed, is well pitched.
Yep. Then we get the Knights of Montfort under Lenguet de Lebeau. Excellent name. And we got knights over in Montfort. Clarion call goes out. They get the peasants together and they go wandering up into the mountains. I actually like that it even talks about that the more that you have, like, the knights errant are so eager to go in that they ride their horses up, and all the questing knights are like, those guys are young and stupid. We're going on foot.
On that, anyone French out there, Tibol, I saw that you were in earlier. Can you tell us what Dit le Beau means? It's Dit the beautiful. That Beau is Beau beautiful, pretty.
Yeah, I know Beau is beautiful.
What did DIT mean? Does it mean anything particular? Is that a name? Langus Dit le Beau. It's for me. With that, I haven't looked it up. I probably should have done so. Google is my friend. But if any of you are French out there, know what that means, I'd love to know. If you don't have the book, I'll just type it into chat. Langus dit le beau. I've spelled Beau wrong, haven't I? Oh no, I spelled it right. Let me see if I've spelled the rest of the name right. DIT. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his name. So we're just curious what the deep means.
There you go. Oh, you appear to have frozen, or have I frozen? Nobody can be certain.
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay, cool.
All right, and then we have the final army, which actually has by far the most interesting lore tidbit. So it's like Say the Beautiful. How would you like translate his full name then?
Say the Beautiful. Langus says the beautiful.
So it would translate to be
said to be the beautiful. Got you.
That's
okay.
Fun.
Langus said to be beautiful. Okay, or something like that. I see.
That's an arrogant name. I like that. The ladies, they say I am very beautiful. Last we have the Warriors of Ulthuan. This one's actually fun because it corrects a statement I said a little earlier with the Elven Wayfarers, where they go out of the way to say that a lot of the elves that you see this part of the old world come in on the Empire's rivers. They sail deep in on the Empire's rivers, and I like how it portrays the High Elves as kind of they're up to something. Like, it literally says they're on secretive missions that they're not willing to tell everyone about. And like Andy said, they have to debark and risk catching the attention of the dwarfs. But one of the King of France IRL was called Louis de la Grosse, so Louis said the fact. Okay, well, if at least it's based on an IRL naming convention, even though it doesn't seem to make sense in English. I'll say that.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool. It's said to be beautiful. Louis Dietlegros, whatever. Sweet. Thank you. Appreciated for the comments. That was from Erwin Kruger there.
Yeah, and like Andy said, this section quite literally calls out that the dwarfs, if it wasn't for the fact the dwarfs were busy with other matters, they would attack the elves.
Yep. This little section, the Elven Wayfarers, is one of the first examples I have read in the old world material where I went, yeah, this is it. This is right. They've taken all of the various lore that's out there, and they've siphoned it down into a very simple set of statements. The discussions about the High Elves and how they get about the Empire have gone across multiple books all over the place, but they do use the rivers. They go up from Marienburg, up the River Reich, up to Altdorf, across the various major water streams. It's how they work. They are, after all, the Lords of the Sea, and those rivers are enormous. They're not like the real world European rivers. They're far bigger and broader, often multiple miles in width, and you can have entire sea battles on these rivers. They're that big, and that's cool. And having it all there, having the dwarf part marked out really bluntly, this is going to go bloody, and then having the quite clear political double dealings that are going on with the elves and their secretive nature being marked directly into the text. Again, good shit. This is good.
Yeah, I really like how political the High Elves are being portrayed in the old world. Like they're like sinisterly political, which is great. That's what they should be. Despite the fact that the old world has a bad habit of using like good and evil, they introduce good nuance for some of the factions. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it basically just takes us to rules that we don't really need to cover, even though these rules are super cool. From what I've heard,
cool
apparently the baggage cart rule system is like fantastic. I heard people love the secondary objectives, which is good. And that is Battle March.
I'll say one other thing, because I do think it's worth mentioning a small comment on the magic items, because it's got a bunch of Battle March specific, I suppose.
The specific cheap.
They're all
cheap
low
items.
point, they're cheap, and they are bland as fuck. And I feel that this was an obvious choice. They've made them bland so they can be taken by anyone, but they're so bland that I was like, this doesn't feel very Warhammer-y at all. Just some random skirmishy blade.
One of the enchanted items is literally just a map. Yeah, it's not even magical. It's just a map.
This is some weak ass writing. All of the descriptions, generally a sentence to describe it, are bland as fuck. These are what we discussed in some of our previous reviews where we said AI would have done it just the same. And
because it's like
much of this is like that.
And not very strong doesn't mean they can't be fun and exciting
and unique and interesting. And this is something that various versions of Warhammer has done quite well with its smaller ones, where they're talking about the old editions of Warhammer Quest, where they're talking about the earlier editions of Warhammer 4 or 5, even 6, even though they dialed down the magic items massively when they hit 6. They still had character, and there is a decided lack of character here in the idea of making them generic, and I think it's actually a missed opportunity. Warhammer has lots of specific details to create effects, so you could have made them specific. If it's vaguely anti-magical, you could have dropped in details about obsidian or lead or something like that. You could have given them fun, cool little nitty-gritty details that made them sound Warhammer, rather than this is a generic stabby blade, here is another generic stabby blade, this is a map. Meh. It's super small, but meh. All right. I don't think it's a fair way to conclude this book, because if I'm going to drop my conclusion of this book, it is that for all there is sparse lore in this one, and we are ultimately on this channel discussing the various extra gubbins that have been added to the background, the lore that it offers is well considered, well pitched, and also, unlike some of the previous books, not deeply contradictory with everything elsewhere, barring maybe those state army soldiers, purely because I still have a bee in my bonnet considering Magnus being that figure that reformed the Empire, and they're pushing that backwards. It's a decent book, but it is not one that I would recommend if you're interested in lore only. If you're interested in the game, it's a must buy.
Yeah, if you're interested in the game at all, honestly, fantastic book.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, let's grab some more super chats out, and then we're off to March of Chaos.
The book I've read on screen.
Yeah, sorry off topic, but what are walkers from Warhammer Age of Reckoning and
Good question.
Bloodcursed
What are
from Warhammer
walkers?
Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition?
Okay, Bloodcursed. What book's Bloodcursed then? I can't even remember. Okay, so I was writing for Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition. Did I write Bloodcursed? Not off the top of my head, which means it's not a book that I wrote, or probably was involved with all the mapping, which suggests an earlier book. I'm not sure what it's from. The Walkers, I have no recollection of in Age of Reckoning at all. I played Age of Reckoning almost end to end, but it was so long ago that I can barely remember it.
Okay. They're one of the like weird undivided demons from the game. So they're an unaligned demon.
Well, then the answer appears to be marked quite certainly there. There are many more unaligned demons than there are aligned ones. There are all sorts of crazy deities, demons, powers, and other things that exist in the aether, many of which get conquered by chaos and taken in, others of which hide from it, others which do other things.
Bloodcursed are the cornate undead blood pools.
Okay, so was that in the Tomb of Corruption?
Bloodcursed Warhammer.
Bloodcursed. If you see the Tomb of Corruption,
now I scroll down.
I'm going to be embarrassed.
Andy, it's from Ashes of Middenheim.
Ashes of Middenheim. Ashes of Middenheim. So that was Graham. And Graham didn't write all that adventure for all that he's marked. That adventure was significantly developed by Green Ronin on the inside. They are the pools that are inside the Cornate Temple for the Chaos Champion, as I recall. The big monolith, which is raised in that area, and indeed directly applies to the book we're about to move to. So this is a great monolith of chaos that was risen after the Great War against chaos there. I can't remember the details of it though, beyond the fact
I'll
they
tell
exist.
you the details. So a bloodcursed is a humanoid creature that's pissed off Khorne enough that they are captured, flayed until nothing but a pile of bones and a bowl of blood remains, and then their spirit is imprisoned within that pool of blood. And it's a vaguely humanoid figure that is comprised of red mist that snarls and attacks people around it.
It's an angry blood spirit. There you go. It looks like the description is pretty much written in the text. What more do you have about that? They're not undead per se. You got to remember that chaos deals in souls.
Yeah, and it's not
and soul stuff.
Yeah, and it's not impossible for there to be things that would, by every definition of the word, be undead, to be demonic or dead creatures, especially if you consider that back in the old days, so you just go back to like 5th edition, 4th edition, you don't have to go back that far. Yeah. There was a lot of overlap. Like chaos and undeath were basically the exact same thing for a long time.
Yeah.
There's a reason Heinrich Himmler has both, because when he was written, they were the same fucking thing.
Yeah, true fact. But that's somewhat post that, because we're talking 6th edition Warhammer when this was released. And I think the easiest, quickest way to sum it is that chaos traffics in souls. The souls that they reap, the souls that they take, the souls that are dedicated to them. And just because you die in no way ends your service. This would be seen by others as undead stuff, but it's not. It's just chaos stuff. Many demons are nothing more than the souls of followers or those that were killed, that are brought back and given eternal torment in service to chaos, their minds now insane beyond any normal measure, and now basically fulfilling that god's duties upon wherever they may be summoned to. So yeah, this is not uncommon for chaos to have a soul in agony unleashing hell upon his enemies.
Singemeister, thoughts? Nagash starting on the Blackbeard and not Nagash's are. So, gameplay wise, it was absolutely the right choice, because the Nagash's province has very unique challenges. Gameplay wise, lore wise, the way I literally just justify it to myself is that the Skaven or somebody managed to destroy his body and he just reformed again at the Black Pyramid.
Yeah, that does it for me. And makes sense for Nagash. Yeah, easy peasy.
Gnivel, which races can be blessed besides humans and gnomes?
Depends what you call blessed. All elves believe they're blessed. Every single last one of them believe they are blessed by the gods favored children, and that magic, all magic, is their blessing to the elves. The dark elves take this further, where dark magic was created by the elves and their goddess Hecate, and was given to the dark elves, effectively much later, given to the elves to use to destroy chaos. Every single species, pretty much in Warhammer, is blessed by the gods. It's just the blessings manifest differently. Take a look at the butchers over with the ogres and the great works of, let's call it magic, if you will, or divine stuff they can do because of their connection through to them all. All the species, bar maybe the Cathaean dragons, are to a greater or lesser degree blessed by the gods.
Yep, there you go. Watchdog, using these books, what army are you inspired to build? For me personally, I mean, the orc army is described really, really fun. But I do love beastmen. I really like beastmen.
I mean, they're super easy to paint.
That too. The less
Brown!
metal people are wearing with detail, the happier I am.
More brown.
Yeah,
brown.
Shades, yeah, brown shade. I'm done.
They're going through a muddy field. Brown.
Yeah. Kitty and Gleeful. How would you differentiate the armies of the three empires rather than them just being empire in different colors?
Oh God, I wouldn't. But I would. So first, I'm being just flippant when I say I wouldn't. I absolutely would. And
remember, we have a thick book to go through. So
yeah, the easiest way I'd say this is start off with the deity that they're centered around and work from there. Tal, Sigmar, Ulrich.
There you go. Stephen Lucas, side tangent, plot idea of a Lithanar mentoring the Nippon Shogun. Total War Warhammer 3 for the old world. Nippon get into a failed war with Dark Elves and will explain the end times. Do you mean in the sense of like, I don't know what you mean by explain?
Why would a Lithanar do that?
Yeah, I'm not
pretty,
seeing the correlation here.
He's pretty filled with both hatred for the Dark Elves, a great sense of almost national pride for his own people.
He's a pretty busy guy, to be fair.
And he's also somewhat of an extremist, which means a lot of his thought and time is spent on the core things that are important to him. Not traveling around the world trying to trick other folks and doing stuff. He's got bigger stuff to deal with. So I'm not sure that's the best idea. Having said that, though, I would also have said that having Miao Ying travel across the world, abandon the Bastion, and have a big shindig down in the Westerland was a bad idea.
What I would say, the idea of a man who eventually becomes a Nippon Shogun, who was captured by Dark Elves as a young man, taken as a slave, freed by a Lithanar, and through some shenanigans managed to be sort of
now we got a story.
Raised and trained by him, that would work. And then he goes back to Nippon.
Like that.
Yeah,
like
that could work 100%.
Yeah.
Sean Schultz, could we see Andy and play a game of Warhammer Fantasy on Tabletop Simulator?
Heck, I haven't even got to my Final Fantasy games yet because I've been so
he's got to play more Final Fantasy. He's been bribed to do that one first. He's got
I've got a lot to do first. Let me also say though that my mum's going into hospital tomorrow. Again, and not great. So if I vanish for a day or two, apologies ahead of time. I don't intend to, but who knows what happens with the vagaries of medicines. My mum, for all she was in hospital for 2 months, and you think that'd fix her, about as far from it as you can imagine.
Getting old sucks.
Yeah, it does.
John Logan, are vampires the strongest race per capita? That's such a funny way to put it.
That is.
If you are counting vampires as their own standalone quote unquote
species.
Race or species, I think the answer would be yes. Or no, actually probably be the Slann.
I mean, dragons. I mean, you can.
Dragons.
Yeah, know, you can start with Warhammer pulling out random proper big bullshit.
For a vaguely human size,
but if we're going for humanoid
thing, yes.
Yeah. Much like the humanoid robot games over in China just now, which have been filling me with great humor, watching them all fall around, falling around and blowing up and just being sort of rubbish, but equally slightly terrifying for what's quite clearly on the horizon over the course of the next year or two after that. If we're going with just humanoid, like those robots, vampires are probably your best bet.
Yeah, like I would if you were like,
too inconsistent. Just to bring up the Sugargan. the Dragon-Blooded Sugarkin, because some of them are very this, some of them are not.
Andy hasn't gotten to see this yet, but let's get into...
Oh, fucking hell, look at that.
The March
Who's
of
doing the art?
Chaos
Because it's fucking amazing.
Yeah,
GW, tell me who does all the art. Why aren't you sharing it and shouting it from the heavens at your gorgeous art that's been created by a marvelous creative that you do not have the... I don't know. I'm just going to go off on one. I'm just going to stop.
Commission them, yeah, because the amount of new art in this book is like crazy. There's a lot of new art for this book. All right, so we're starting with the Storm Gathers. So the Storm Gathers is basically kind of the catch up to tell you like what happened in the last episode of the old world.
Before you do that, perhaps a quick summary of what the book actually represents. What's this book for?
Yes. So the March of Chaos. This is basically part 3? No, part 4. This is part 4 of the Friedel the Chainmaker saga, where part 1 is Friedel invades the Westerland. Part 2 is Miao Ying shows up. Part 3 is Miao Ying teams up with Marienburg and they kick ass at you bubblegum. And Friedel goes, oh shit, and gets pushed back to Harlem. And this is part 4. With that, we get our first thing of the Cathayan Dragon, which, okay. Oh, actually, this is a good moment. This book is wildly different from all of the other Arcane Journals that have come before it about campaigns, because the tone of the narrator is brand new. This narrator is not God voice. Sometimes he is God voice, but he talks in ifs and maybes and rumors.
Yeah, I found just as a general overall commentary on this one, and again, I am going to be hands up. My book's not arrived. I have read this one across the screen with Ryan literally holding it up. I have not read this very well. But one of the things that particularly got with me with this one was almost a fear by the writer of creating stuff that contradicts other stuff, or alternatively a fear of
what it feels like.
Things outright, because so many points it goes, and they went over here, and some say they might have done this, some say they might have done that, someone else said they might have done this, holy shit, get to the point, and a third sentence, and someone else said they might have done this, oh wow, okay. There is a lot of vague language used, and it is what we were largely calling for in some respects, as in bring it down from God voice to the experiences of individuals who can speak to what they've done. And that doesn't mean that everyone does the same, but this is sort of done a sort of half and half version, and you'll see as we go through it, where it both says everybody does this and they all do this, but what do they do?
Yeah, it's a bit wishy-washy. There are times where it works and times where it doesn't.
I agree. Some parts I was like, ooh, particularly when it's having new ideas.
Yeah, this literally feels like they went to the authors and were be like, okay, we're getting a lot of criticisms about some of the nitty-gritty stuff. You need to like ease up. And they went, oh, okay. And they're trying a new writing style in this book.
I don't know if anyone else got this, but when you said that little bit, it completely phased out on my side, and all I got was metallic tones. So it went literally like this. And then the authors went, ooh, bleep, 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 bleh. Which was genuinely hilarious.
Awesome.
Yeah, brilliant.
I wish I could do that on demand. That would be great.
It was just brilliant.
Yeah,
that was just for me. Saying, I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, basically just saying that this book feels like the author is trying out a new style of writing, and it hits sometimes, it doesn't. I hope they stick with it, and I hope they get better at it.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, so with the Cathayan Dragon, this is actually the first time the authors have actually talked to us about what is going on in the other parts of the Empire and the Old World about the arrival of Miao Ying, where it talks about like how Reichland has rumors about strange sorcery arriving from a foreign land, and then up in Nordland and such, they're talking about like, oh, a bunch of losers having to rely on aid from a foreign country, and then in Bretonia, they're like, there's dragons in the hills, which is funny. From there, we get to
I just want to bring in one comment there. In the Reichland, rumor told of how Elspeth Margreta of Marienburg had welcomed strange sorcery and blah, 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 blah. Okay, zero introduction for that character. And I was reading it from my best perspective, as I often do when I do it with my I've no idea what anything is.
She gets a slight introduction in the first paragraph, but it's not much.
This becomes the standard throughout, where the characters are not properly introduced. You don't get a clean, this is who they are and what they're trying to do. This book is this character's here, this character's here, this character's here, and it all just quickly bundles up, and it begins to get a bit like, and I'm going to hesitate to say this, Age of Sigmar, where Age of Sigmar tends to just drop shit on you.
Yeah, this book absolutely assumes that it's like, oh yeah, this is the fourth part. You've read the other three parts, right? Yeah.
And I think that is unwise, because the requirement to fix that is tiny. It's not a big ask to go through and add those few extra. I mean, they've got like entire sentence space structures here.
It's like someone might have just picked this up so they could use the rules in the back. So might give them the lore update with a good intro. So
yeah, totally. It's not particularly hard to do, and they didn't do it. So if you're going to come to this book for the first time and haven't read any other book, be aware that some of the lore in here where you'll be just like, who is this person? How did this happen? How did we get here? And the answer is, go read other books, which is understandable. But at the same point, if you are just playing the game and you're just using the rules, I think it's almost an unforgivable sin.
Yep.
Sin!
All right.
Sin!
From that, this takes us to the War in the Westerland, which the War in the Westerland basically sums up the second two books, which are the Raising of the Westerland and I can't remember what the other one was called. But this book basically gives you the TLDR of how those resolved, because those end on cliff notes, and this basically tells you what the cliff note result is.
Yeah, and I think in terms of pitch, you can see what this opening section was designed to do. This book here is about to continue on this story, and this is where the story currently is. But the paragraphs are too exclusive to properly introduce you to the story. Instead, what it does is it summarizes it from a knowing perspective. And if you are not in the know, it actually makes it tough to get through.
If you're not collecting all of the books, the War in the Westerland section, I will slap you across the face with a what, where it just randomly brings up Beastmen. But if you've been reading all the books and you read the Beastmen book, you'll know the Beastmen just won a huge war in the Laralorn and are now spreading out. So you go, if you've read all of them, you go, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Everything's tying together. But if you hadn't, you'd look at this and go, why the fuck are the Beastmen here all of a sudden? Where'd they come from? Sorry, cliffhangers. I said cliff notes, cliffhangers. So from there we get to the Warriors of Chaos section. Which boy, we're about to get into some stuff. So the Warriors of Chaos. This section is weird. This feels like it should have been in the Warriors of Chaos Arcane Journal, but it wasn't, and now it's here, and you're like, oh, this is very useful information for the world building. Why isn't it in the faction book?
Yeah, this the section we're about to move into, that felt like this to me. Okay, I'm writing up about Warriors of Chaos, and I've been asked some questions about how the fuck Warriors of Chaos work, and you know what? They don't. So I'm going to answer it here because we didn't answer it elsewhere. This is how I've decided the Warriors of Chaos work, and a lot of this is new. A lot of this stands in stark contrast to various other tales that have been expressed elsewhere, and it basically, in some respects, removes the chaos from chaos and makes it organized, really organized.
Yeah, it does. So we have the Shardlands. The Shardlands basically explaining where the Shadowlands meets the Realm of Chaos and reality starts to break up, which technically was a thing in fantasy, but is not like it is here. Like here, they have really changed how the Warhammer world is physically constructed. Where in the old days, it used to be you had to go north. You had to basically walk into the Realm of Chaos before reality fell away. Now it's like
I mean, once you got, the closer you got, the less it was stable. The Shardlands, as described here, was in previous editions the Shadowlands.
The whole thing of where like the world is just breaking away into like this, where it's literally just collapsing away like a river ripping away sand. That it's interesting how much they're leaning into that as a concept.
Yeah, agreed. And it's worth noting that this is still a place you can visit. as it goes through its description.
Yeah, they talk about people just walking through it.
Yeah, totally. This isn't somewhere where you turn into a mutant Gribbly and you've entered into the realm of chaos. Quite the opposite. It's somewhere where the realm of chaos is so present and so strong that reality itself has massively bent. And this is something that's been in all editions to some lesser or greater degree. But here it's codified, given a direct area, the Shardlands, which are begun to shard and break up and become their own thing. And it's also where the Warriors of Chaos come from directly. And they describe the whole process in some respects like 1,000 little Archaeons all proving themselves. And it's interesting.
I will say this book does seem to reinforce a lot of the evidence that's been coming out, where it really feels like the tribes of chaos, aka Norskins and such, and the Warriors of Chaos are going to be becoming their own separate factions. It really feels like they're laying the groundwork for this. Because like these guys are not normal. Like they're not at all.
They're not Norskins. They're not the Kull. They're not the Kurgan. They're not any of these. These guys, as we're about to go into, in the Shardlands, are the Chaos Warriors. They're the ones covered top to toe in Chaos armor, which is almost taken over them and made them something new in the service of the Chaos Gods. Chaos Warriors that are through their descriptions. Yeah, 100%. And they sit there and lie in wait, warring with each other to hone their skills, waiting for the next great incursion of chaos to come before they then march alongside all the hordes of chaos that surround them in the Shadowlands. It's an interesting repitch of chaos, because this is an entire repitching of how it works. This is new.
Yep. So Shardlands basically just goes into what the Shardlands are, talks about that there are way more chaos forts. There are a ton of chaos forts, and they are full to the brim, and everyone's fighting all the time, constantly.
Yeah, so each of these massive fortresses that sit up in the Shardlands are filled with Chaos Warriors, all of whom have at the top.
Also, once again, on the top, brand new art that is gorgeous of warriors fighting Cathayans. Looks great.
And each of them have got their own, let's say, flavor. That's a quick way of putting it.
Path to Glory. So here we get the whole thing where they kind of talk about like who becomes the Warriors of Chaos. They do give a nice little like nod to the Beastmen and mutants. They do call out mutants, which this book actually talks a little bit about later. And then this basically builds up. The interesting thing about this is they talk a lot about the urge, like that desire, that compulsion to make the journey to the north. Which is a fun fact. You saw more in older lore for Warhammer, and then in like the later editions, it kind of got phased out. But like, if you read the story of what's his face, the guy that walks with flowers behind him,
Akold Hellbrass.
Yeah, Akold Hellbrass. That's like a really core part of his story, is that like that call that takes people from the south. Like, why do they go north when it sucks so much? And for a lot of them, they like feel it, almost like how the Great Maw calls the ogres to them. And this reinforces.
I want to
that
pull up this one because this is a good shout out as well. The Laughter of Dark Gods. And for those of you who don't know, the Laughter of Dark Gods is a quotation from. Are you ready for your bingo card? Michael Moorcock. The end of one of his short stories has basically the entire futility of man laid out, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is this? What we're left with?" And then all that can be heard is the laughter of dark gods. That's a direct quotation from Michael Moorcock, and you'll find that a lot of early works from Games Workshop had quotation marks taken directly from. Michael Moorcock. Chaos, after all, was in its form as we understand it was created by him.
Yep. Of course, it does end with a really nice thing about like most people, the vast majority of people don't make it. They either die or they go mad, and a couple of them will survive, and some of them will become immortal demon princes, and some will just find something waiting for them in these fortresses.
Yeah, this is a repitching of how chaos works. Previously, it went something like this. I wanted to become a champion of Chaos God and ascend to godhood by following the path to glory, for example. I will revel in everything that my particular Chaos deity represents, and I hope that deity will recognize this and elevate me. I'm now off to do a whole bunch of really cool acts that the god will love. And I am either A, going to succeed, this is super rare, become a demon prince, be given immortality, and serve basically under my god's right boot, heel, claw, whatever, for all eternity. I've hit. I've won. I've done it. Great. Or alternatively, you die, or turn to Chaos Spawn. That was your options. Along that road, Chaos Warrior armor was a frequent gift to those who were particularly favored. If you got yourself a full suit of Chaos armor, you were on the winning side and doing well. And any mutation that you gained, the armor would adapt to. And according to some stories, this armor could never, ever be taken off. So that's the old story. The new story is, so you go on the path of glory, and if you find that the whole trying for ascension isn't going for you, just keep going north, and you can join the Chaos Warriors instead by being one of the coolest, killiest things out there. But if you do, you pretty much lose all of your own individuality forever. What do you want to do? It's an interesting repitching of it all.
Yeah, they're really in this book, which it comes up later. We're like two pages away from it. They're really leaning into the old iconography of slaves to darkness. Like they're really leaning heavy on the slaves to darkness concept.
To the point that I was quite pleased at some of the language chosen. We're going to get to some of it, but one of the classic pieces of old version of Chaos was those who stepped onto the path of glory, those who started worshipping the dark gods, lost themselves in the great passions of those gods. And they lose their individuality. They are no longer the people they once were until eventually they forget the life that they had, and they will happily wantonly slay the people who used to be their best friends in the name of the Chaos powers because they've forgotten them. And it steers into that in more than one place for the Warriors of Chaos only.
Yeah, I do like that they kind of are taking the concept of becoming a warrior of chaos, which used to sort of be like why wouldn't anyone do this? It seems like it's honestly a pretty good deal. And in this book, it's like, no, even if you become one, there's like a 99% chance you're completely fucked. Gone.
It's almost like becoming a demon. You've lost yourself to that god, except you're a physical demon covered tip to toe in armor. Chaos Warriors are, as we know, giant motherfuckers that make the Odyssey giant motherfuckers look like, well, pals, because they're just like those. Chaos Warriors suck. They're scary.
Yeah. Speaking of which, so the next we get to Warriors of the Gods. So this basically talks a little bit about like, oh, people like to go north and stuff. It basically says, and this is what caused Friedel the Chainmaker to go north. Where once again we get a lot of really cool information, genuinely about Friedel that should have been in her book, which is the Warriors of Chaos book, but it's in this book.
It's almost like they heard our complaints saying, who the fuck, what the fuck's going on? Who are these people? Why are we getting any details? They decided to just drop it here, and we're getting details about Friedel underneath a header, Warriors of the Gods. If you skim, which many people do, if you skim, you're going to miss all this crap because you're going to read it and you're going to go, oh, it's just more Warriors of Chaos nonsense. I want to get to the good shit. No, there's good shit sitting right in the middle here. It's just badly headered, so you can't quite see it, and also badly placed. This should have been right at the beginning. Who is this person? How did they get here? What are they doing? What's at stake? What are they attempting to do? No, they've dropped it right at the very end. It's weird.
Yeah, Friedel's section is just thrown in here instead of being properly formatted. This is super weird.
It's super weird.
Yeah, like we get the cool details of, we now know that she left home as a marauder that had almost nothing. She was just a skilled warrior because she didn't have any armor, she didn't have any mutations, and she comes back with the great horns and the full plate mail and all this stuff. And talks about, like, we learned that she fights all the way north, and her particular path took her to a citadel where she challenges the horde within. And then we get the Warriors Ascension, which is a kind of a fun section where it doesn't it's weird. It tells us nothing.
It tells us fuck all. What a waste of space some of this is.
Yeah, so it basically says that her saga says she makes it to the portal opens, the doors open, she goes inside, and then God voice basically goes, and I have no fucking idea what happened. But here's some things that might have happened.
It's crazy. So we've got ourselves God voice and God voice. I'm going to quote this because it is genuinely crazy. Perhaps the warband wandered endlessly through the maze of the impossibly twisting tunnels, battling the denizens of that dark labyrinth for the amusement of the gods. Perhaps they were greeted by the lord of that accursed citadel and welcomed as champion of the gods, or perhaps they faced trials of wholly more esoteric or spiritual nature, trials intended to test their devotion to the ruinous powers. What's the point of that paragraph? The paragraph there basically says, we don't know what happened. in God voice. It's mental. They could have written that in so many different ways, but what they chose, they could have pitched it as an in-character thing. Like, for example, some of those in the warband said this, and others said this, another said that. Personalize it, but instead they go full God voice, and they basically say this is a bunch of stuff that didn't happen. It's almost pointless.
If they had removed these 3 paragraphs and instead included like a sidebar in its own little thing called the Saga of the Chainmaker, where it's an in-universe character.
Oh, that'd have been great.
That would have been perfect. This was a really weird.
As an example of that, go back to the old Realms of Chaos books, and you can see the sagas on the great monoliths of some of the Chaos champions there, like Lothar Bubonic.
Another good example is the 7th edition Dark Elves book. Does something similar. Very cool. Where it's like this art that has like the picture of the character and it's their saga just written out on top. It's very fun.
And that tells an in-universe story. And it makes you go, cool. Is it true? Is it not true? Well, nobody's quite sure. But the aura that this story brings as this character arrives is palpable because everybody sort of believes it. This doesn't do that. This doesn't even say these are the things that are said about the character. It literally says she walked in, something happened, no one knows what it was. So here's some things it could have been. What the WTF is this?
Yep. All right. So now
I giggled my way through that bit. I quite enjoyed it, but I was left going weird.
I saw what they were trying to do, and there was a better way to do it with the same amount of space. And
the next sentence is perfect. Whatever dangers they faced, Fardahl and her companions were retreading a path walked by many before them. For many of those that prove themselves worthy are led towards one of the fortresses that haunt the Shardlands. And basically just keeps on continuing saying, people go up there, things happen. What happens? Who knows? It's mental. Very strange.
All right. Next up, we're off to the
we should go through super chats because we're falling behind.
Okay. Yeah.
Do a quick break.
Gnivel, I'll be disappointed at every arcane journal since that one Marienburg Necromancer Famir AOL leak turned out to be a fake. Didn't know I wanted it until I saw it. Yeah. We can always hope.
That, in some respects, that's one of the problems with the arcane journals, and that's that they often don't include really cool shit that we don't expect. They are basically filled with everything we do expect. When the first army list came out, all the way back in 4th edition, everything was new, everything was rewritten, and everything was like, oh, wow, this is cool. People poured over those books because they were filled with new Warhammer stories no one had ever seen before. When 5th edition came out, they added to it by adding new factions. We got the vampires, we got the Bretonnians, we got the lizardmen. These were all new things that are being added to the ongoing story. When 6th edition came out, it refined it and it made it into a coherent story because everything that came before it had just been created willy-nilly. 7th and 8th started to get repetitive, but by the time we hit 8th, they started adding some new shit again and telling some new stories. Things like demogryphs, they didn't exist beforehand. Things like the Great Hurricaniums or the Luminarch of Hyche or whatever. Whole bunch of cool stuff. Let's just use the Empire Army as a single example. What we have here, though, is not anything strictly that exciting or new. Instead, what we have is exactly what we expect, drawing upon all the old Warhammer Fantasy stuff with just a few new character names, because that's where they're going new. Here's a new Chaos character. Here's a new Bretonnian character. Not new, mentioned in other books, but sure, whatever. And that's one of the biggest flaws of the old world. It's not bringing anything new and exciting to the table, at least much. We could say the Cathayans are, and I agree. But that's one amongst many. And this entire section sort of contradicts that by attempting to say, here's the lore you knew about the Chaos Warriors. We are now repitching it entirely. And we're dragging it all together. And we're saying that Chaos Warriors are actually different to the Chaos tribes around them.
Yep.
You lost the comments. There we go.
Yeah. Ricky Chapman, sorry for being late. Was doing some AOS with those Golden Sigmar worshippers. Need to be reminded why they should fear the wrath of Behemoth.
Quite right, Ricky.
Behemoth. Yeah. Behemoth. Yeah. The new Giants have me so excited for just giant stuff. Like, Giants are so cool right now.
Tempted to pull one in for the next campaign for Lawhammer because that freaking
you should,
she's amazing.
Dude,
she's amazing.
Margaret, she's great.
Yeah, really good miniature. Really love it.
Czar94 played my first game
Nice.
of AOS as the Daughters of Cain today. Congrats. Very fun time in faction. Did Fantasy Dark Elves play similar? No. And do you think the old world Dark Elves will play like glass cannons? Kind of.
No.
They're not real glass cannons.
No, because I played against the Dark Elves so many times because Lindsay played them as her main army, and they were borked and broken because they didn't get updates for a whole bunch of their troops, meaning that their core blocks were nigh on impregnable and frenzying all over the place and killing everything. It sucked. Good fun to play against. I did win more games than not, but they weren't glass cannons. That's something that comes later. They have glass cannon units, but as an army, they were significantly stronger and blockier than many people expected.
Yeah.
And high in points too.
Yeah, they're much more shooty than the Daughters of Cain. They are so shooty.
So shooty.
God, they have so much shooting. It tends to be a bit shorter range, but like it hurts. God, it hurts. Those are repeating crossbows.
I saw a good working example of a repeater crossbow the other day, by the way. Looked almost exactly like Dark Elves, not in the design of it, but in the construction using the same thing. Terrifyingly effective. It made me go from I don't think the repeater crossbows are at all sensible to holy shit, they're really cool. Thanks TikTok.
There you go. EJ Cruising for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Ed. What weapon skill and melee basic should a Chaos Warrior have?
High, really high. If we're talking about your average soldier in the Empire, starting with a weapon skill of 3. Okay, and that's experience. So we're talking weapon skill inside Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay of about 50 to 60. Weapon skill 4 is going up to your 70s to 80s. 5s, you're peaking on your 100s. And they start at 5, so you're probably starting at a base value of at least 100. And that's not reflected at all in the rules as they currently stand.
Yeah, and the biggest, so I would say, like 90s 100, and they should also have like talents for just beating the shit out of people in combat. Like they are mean motherfuckers.
Yeah, go watch the Odyssey if you want to see it in practice.
Petrus Hypatus, full armor, reforging, lost memories, Stormcast, not quite the same thing.
Correct. We discussed this in the Stormcast stream where we basically said that Chaos Warriors and Stormcast are nigh on identical.
Yes,
the only difference is one's big and golden and the other one's big and black, in their big black armor and big black stuff. And they basically are Chaos Warriors.
You are essentially correct. They're slaves to Sigmar instead of slaves to darkness.
Correct. And they do lose themselves just like the Chaos Warriors do as well. The similarities between the two, I think, should be made a thing because by the gods, it doesn't make Sigmar look great.
Yeah, and if you actually if you're ever bored, you can look up the original design documents for the Stormcast as Age of Sigmar was being built, and they were literally designed as someone the artist was told make order Chaos Warriors.
Yeah.
That was like his starting pitch that he had to put them together from.
And as it turns out, they basically are Chaos Warriors.
Yep. The T-Bone. I finished Shaman Slayer recently. Words cannot convey the sheer amount of dread that entered my soul when I found out that the beautiful woman Felix met was the child for Troll Slayer. Yeah. Felix is unfortunately not beating the groomer allegations. It's one of those things. I don't know what I don't know what they were thinking, including that storyline.
That was Nathan.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's kind of a classic of like the early 2000s, late 90s anime fantasy.
Really is.
Like there's a lot of those of like, I saved this child and like she's loved me all her life and now she's an adult and she chases me and we fall in love. But like now we're like, ooh, we have a word for that and it's not a flattering word. Like I feel like it's kind of a product of its time, which is unfortunate. And Necromancer Cobalt. It's so interesting having God Voice have ? Though it's inspiring to have what feels like fresh new writers learning to write as they go, in my opinion.
Nah. I'm happy with fresh new writers learning as they go. I'm not happy with their work not being edited to make it awesome, because this is a professional product from the biggest games company in terms of tabletop battles in the world. The biggest.
Yep.
So their products should be the best examples of what can be done. They are not. Other companies are producing better work. We don't see them. We don't cover them because we're not interested in them because we like our Warhammer. But that doesn't mean that other products aren't doing this job better. This is, as a range of books, they are not great, but they have loads of great moments, and they could have been, with almost no changes across the board, beautiful, perfectly pitched pieces.
Better.
And I think equally that they're getting better. But that whole paragraph we just discussed in the Path to Glory, was it? That whole paragraph is a waste of space. It could have been done so many better ways and really hit home what the setting talks about. But instead, we get this weird paragraph that has no justification for why it's taking these angles or telling the story that it is. It's an odd choice.
Balfa, where's my goddamn Fishman Games Workshop? Promises were made. I don't know what promises you're talking about, but I would like to see the goddamn Fishman at some point.
I would also like to see the goddamn promises, just so I can go, oh, really? Yeah. Missed that.
All right, moving on. It is time for the making of a warrior.
Here we go.
So this basically talks about, so this gives us a little bit of like marauders often want to become chaos warriors. They many of them worship one of the 4 tribal gods, which they're really reinforcing. Once again, I really feel like they're setting up to split the tribes from the warriors, because they're really reinforcing that the tribes understand the gods very differently, because they see them as very totemic, whereas the warriors of chaos don't. And so anyway, so they do this thing and they're like, if you prove yourself to be super duper spooky and awesome, you are given the opportunity to don a chaos warrior armor. And it comes at a terrible cost because it damns you. And then they talk about the ritual of being armored, which is very new.
Really?
In the old lore, they very rarely, if ever, talked about where chaos armor actually came from, to the point that most fans, myself included, if you read the roleplay, believe that it just sprouted out of your flesh. Because they so rarely talk about it.
In some parts of the game, it does. In other parts, they describe the Chaos Dwarves building much of it. In some parts, they describe various odd, weird cults building some forms of chaos armor. But others literally are just almost demons given form. They are almost sprouted out of nowhere. They are gifted. You wake up and you're covered in chaos armor. Or you do a great deed in the battlefield and it grows out of your skin because you're apparently blessed by one of the chaos gods. This section on the making of the Chaos Warrior is wholly new and is a wholly different direction that basically says all this stuff, all this weird esoteric shit, ignore all that. Chaos Warriors go through a ritual and they become Chaos Warriors. They're not golden. They don't have Sigmar's name, but they do a thing, and only the ones who are the bestest, who make it all the way up to the north, are selected to be this. And this is new. This is interesting.
Yeah, and we get actually some pretty explicit details about, like, there is either some great lord of chaos or a sorcerer of some kind involved, or actually both. And a sorcerer will call forth the armorers of chaos, which are described as twisted creatures. It's a little unclear whether they're mutants or whether they're like some new species of creature. That you do a big ritual. They cover you head to toe in blood, and then you are slowly but surely armored up. And when it finishes, the armor of chaos goes a little bit more into detail about talking about how they're manufactured, and they they kind of almost say like they're made by chaos dwarfs, but we're not going to use the word chaos dwarf. It's a little weird.
For me,
like the hell forges, the hellfires of the forges of chaos, made by nameless horrors beneath the looming citadels. Which I'm like, that kind of sounds like Chaos Force, to be honest.
I mean, it sort of does, but equally the citadels are quite clearly marked as being in the north up in the Shardlands by this point. Okay, so it suggests that there's like forge groups up in the Shardlands that create this chaos armor. Even though all of these individual citadels are at war with each other all the time, waiting for the great call of chaos to lead them down southwards. But they're effectively almost immortal warriors from the north. It's an interesting new take. If you want to imagine what this is like, because it goes into a few paragraphs, if you want a quick, it's just like that, think of all the various videos you've probably seen, because we're all geeks and we've seen most of them, of Space Marines getting their armor donned. It's a little bit like that. And when the helmet goes down, you're lost and gone. Your soul is damned forever, and you have become a Chaos Warrior. You're no longer human. You're no longer anything other than a living, sorta, warrior on behalf of the Chaos Gods. It's what I find most interesting with this whole section is that they start, I'll pull up Mornington Crescent's comment there. Yeah, just like the StarCraft 2 start. God, that's pulling me back to when that game was released. What I find most interesting in this is that they almost pitch it like all Chaos Warriors are basically the same, going through the same process, regardless of whether they are from any of the major Chaos powers or lesser. It's all the same thing. They all go up to the north. They join fortresses. There's nothing to do with the Chaos Gods individually. It's all about being a Chaos Warrior, which I found slightly upsetting.
Yeah, this feels like a section.
Yeah, this section feels like when the God voice should have employed the rumor says technique, because this is not going to make sense with some of the characters that already exist in the setting we're talking about.
Yep. Yeah, this whole thing, this creation up in the north of a group of God tier warriors that are siphoned out from all of those who are making their way north to effectively try and become a god. And all of those who almost make it but not quite become one of the greatest blessed states, a Chaos Warrior, where you're a mindless servitor in the service of chaos. And it's not the service of one of the Chaos Gods. It keeps on just being blanket in the service of chaos. You're a Chaos Warrior, which is a bit weird. I think
and the biggest issue is like their main chaos named character, Friedel the Chainmaker, isn't like this. She's not like this at all.
Yeah. And I like it, sorta, but I don't like it. It would be fine
if they were like most. Yeah, if they were like most of the Warriors of the North.
You know, or this Citadel is full of Chaos Warriors who are like this. This Citadel over here is pure demons.
Oh, yeah, if they had made it a specific place, that would have been really cool.
That would have been really, this almost basically says this. The Chaos Warriors are all made by the same process. It's a little bit like, you know, the creation of, let's just say, I want to say the Stormcast, but it's not like the Stormcast, but it sort of is in its own way. They're like Chaos Space Marines. The best come in, they get their armor on, they become Chaos Space Marines, but they lose more of themselves by becoming Chaos Warriors, and they will then fight for eternity until the next Everchosen comes, and then they'll all go to war. All of them having been practicing since the last Everchosen gave it a go, against each other, turn southwards and go to war. It takes the chaos out of chaos. It makes it all homogenous. All Chaos Warriors are basically the same. This is why it sort of suggests all the Chaos Warriors aren't mutated and weird with thousands of different gribbly bits like they used to be back in 3rd edition Warhammer and 4th edition and 5th, where they had entire rules for mutating all of your Chaos Warriors by unit. So this unit has lots of extra heads. This unit has extra tentacles or whatever. No, they all come out looking largely the same because they've been encased in this armor, and they will just fight at the top of the world desperately until they're needed to go for another Everchosen. It's a choice.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if it was applied carefully, if it was applied as this is sometimes what happens, this is what happens at this particular place the book is examining, then I would be like, awesome, great, no notes.
This is the best. Yeah, I agree. This is so close to being a really good addition because it adds so much horror to the Chaos Warrior standard, the models that we've known pretty much since the mid-noughties, because again, the Chaos Warriors from Michael Moorcock, and some very famous examples of Chaos Warriors with Michael Moorcock, and they pitched them over into Warhammer, and also the Brew from RuneQuest, because we can't forget those, the Beastmen that were there matching the mutants and the Beastmen from Michael Moorcock as well. I find it a really cool addition. I just wish it wasn't blanketly applied like every Chaos Warrior now comes from this.
Yeah, because they're not going to do this to their characters. That's the thing. Is like the second they actually write anything involving particular characters or anything like that, they're going to throw this out the window. And we know they are because it'd be boring to write about.
Yeah, it would. In the same way that the original Space Marines got changed from the Rogue Trader version into these battle monks without any individuality at all, as we moved through Rogue Trader into its first expansions and then second edition. Then the novels start coming out and they add more and more character to them with each passing edition, because they are the interesting characters that we can empathize with, understand, tell stories about. They're basically saying Chaos Warriors are now just there to be killed. And in our modern writing, I can't see that lasting long at all, because it will make for really dull enemies.
Yep. And then randomly at the end of the Armor of Chaos section, the narrator suddenly goes, "Oh wait, I'm going to talk about superstitions and rumors and stuff."
I forgot about that.
Where they take he goes like, "Oh, superstition is that the armor is bound to your flesh," which, if you know, like classic Warrior of Chaos lore, that's a classic motif of that their armor is bound to them. But then he says, "This may be true, or perhaps it's simply a misleading allegory. Perhaps those that wear the armor of chaos are simply cursed to wear it and search the rune's power forevermore, unable to sever their dark pacts and return to the life of a mere mortal." And it's like, all right, sure.
Yeah. This is all, unlike some other parts, this is all kind of clumsily written, because all of the actual material is cool. It's just, it's not been pitched in a way that's necessarily cool. I mean, I quite like the idea of what was being written there, just not quite the execution.
Once again, this is another thing which you're going to see a lot in this book. The 90% of it is great, but 90% of it is like, oh yeah, it just needs that little tweak, and it would be really, really solid.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we are on to the Shard Lands, which is the second time they've used that as a title section.
That really disappoints me as a perennial observer of H1s, H2s, H3s, as in titles H1, header 1, header 2, header 3, and how you split your books up.
Yeah, but this one's the big letters instead of the small letters. But like, come on, guys. So we get basically break down several locations. This section has some cool fucking call outs.
It does.
So we have a Realm
some
of Ruin.
good stuff in here.
Yeah, Realm of Ruin basically just talks about that, like, shit's weird. Like, traveling the Shardlands is very odd. You might be traveling through oceans of souls. You might be traveling through eternities of nothingness. Things are weird. Cool, great, whatever.
I'm going to call out one detail that wasn't added, and I think it's to the benefit of this. One of the previous issues with post the earliest stuff from third edition, but in fact most after that, was if you go north, you turn into a mutant. And they stress it again and again, where the earliest stories had people going all the way up to rescue people, to attack, to, I don't know, put giant trains into the center of the heart of chaos, whatever it might be. Okay, and they come back not as mutants. They come back changed because they've seen horror. It's often mentally shattering, but it's not necessarily physically so. But most of the books said, if you go up there, you're fucked. You're going to turn into a tentacle gribbly mess. Not mentioned. And I thought that was to its benefit, because that actually limits stories. One of the problems with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition, for example, and the way it uses corruption, and I put my hand up because I wrote this section, is that it makes it almost impossible to face off against chaos without becoming chaos. And that makes for sometimes less interesting stories. Also makes for interesting stories. Almost impossible is not impossible, but you've got to be very careful how you deploy these tools. This description here basically says you could travel up there, you're going to see some shit, it's going to be bad. I do like it.
It just says you just must be prepared. You must be prepared.
And I think that is probably a better angle than what Warhammer pretty much 4th through to 8th edition did, and almost all the roleplay games have done as well. Except for maybe first edition.
So our first location is none other than motherfucking Zanbai Jin from the Tarmakon storyline, which is a really cool thing to see.
It is.
So it's no longer only existing in a Forge World book. It's now in an official Head Studio publication, which is very nice. So this basically just it basically just regurgitates the lore of just, it's a city older than the race of men. It used to be Though it does add, this book actually explains why the city was lost, which the original Tarpacon book doesn't, which this one says that it was in the top edge of the North World's Edge Mountains, and then it got gobbled up by the realm of chaos. So now it's in weird places and hard to get to. And it's surrounded by the great fighting pits, and hopefully one day someone will claim it on the path to glory. Hint, hint, wink, wink, it's Tarmacon.
It's Tarmacon. I particularly liked the first line because it often is missed when they're doing the vague writing. Believed to be older even than the race of men. Interestingly, they went for men, though, which is often in many of the books described as one of the youngest of the species. So what they're trying to say is this is an elder city. There's a city that, if we go with the standard Warhammer tales, would be the elves or the dwarves, an ancient city that predates man. However, with the more modern lore, particularly from the old world, but it's been the lore since pretty much 6th edition onwards, the species of man is a creation of the old ones and have been there since the beginning. It's just that they were not necessarily the favored of the old ones in most stories. Again, don't look at Albion too hard. So this is, I think, a lovely little detail because it feels right for the nature of the story, and it hints at things which allows for later writers to turn it into something if they wish to do so, or you can just continue on with, this is just an ancient city that was taken in the Cataclysm during the first expansion of the Realms of Chaos, and very likely was once ruled by Be'lakor.
Yep. Next up, we have the Palace of Ruin, which situated in the edge of the Chaos Waste. It rises from the Plain of Bones. A lot of people trying to get in. They talk about it as ossified walls, so it seems to be built out of bone. And very rarely are people granted entry because it has a history of those who enter tend to kill those that are already in there.
Sure. I mean, I reckon most of the places have that.
Yeah, it seems like that's probably the case for most of them, but sure. Nice to know there's one place where they go, maybe we shouldn't let people in.
I would have preferred a slightly different explanation for why it's shut up, as in closed up. We're afraid that someone might try to beat us up is almost the opposite of what is earlier described for all the citadels, where they say they're all constantly warring against each other for the favor of the dark gods and to prove that they're ready for the arrival of the next Everchosen. This one's basically like, no, we don't. Why? And it would have been really nice to have some sort of why written in there rather than just, we're scared. Meh.
Yeah, these guys seem like it literally just paints the Palace of Ruin as the losers of
it's a bit weak. It's like, we've got it now. Close the doors.
Yeah, I do like. Next, we have the Folly of Malefics, which is actually pretty fun. According to legend, a fortress of scorched stone, twisted marble raises from the face of a monstrous glacier on the southern edge of the world's chaos, raised in a single night by Malefics. Such may have seemed impossible. And then they talk about since the demise of Malefics, which is a nice reference, because for those that don't know, Malefics was killed when he fucking freed Kolek Suneater like an idiot. So this is a nice reference.
Lovely reference.
Yeah. So they haven't specifically called out Kolek, but God's willing, Kolek will show up later in the timeline because he plays a big role in the Great War.
Yeah, this is a wholly rare reference in the old world. And this is what I expected from all old world products, which is, we're talking about chaos today. I'm going to drop an Easter egg. We might use that later. We're now talking about this thing. And if you're not new, if you're an old hand at the lore, you look at that and you're like, oh, I know what that is. Anyone who comes to this for the first time, they're like, yeah, it's just another cool place. What's the difference between that and any of the other places? So I love this. It's just a lovely little reference. It's neat.
Yep. All right. And then we got the big one, the Marcher Fortress. So the Marcher Fortress, which is far to the east, has been claimed and owned by the Cool tribe. And within this terrible dark fortress, they basically just flat out tell us the Everchosen is preparing for war. As of our Cool has gotten his first big reference, and we know where he is. And he is actually very, very, very far away. He is really fucking far away, which is exciting, I actually think. Yeah, so if y'all look at this map on here, so this is Norska. You cross, so here's the Darklands. You go all the way over, so we're almost over Kislev, and then you go all the way to the tippy top. There's the Marcher Fortress.
Yeah.
He's way far away from the old world right now.
Good drop. Love it. That's it. Not much to say.
Yeah,
It's good.
yeah, it's fine. It's good.
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah, and I do like that I enjoy. I don't know how long they're going to maintain it for. I hope it's for a while because we are so far from his big invasion. But I do enjoy that Cool is biding his time. Like he's not just immediately coming out. Like he feels like a sinister. He feels like a big bad. He's still doing stuff in the shadows.
Still what? We're still like 24 years, something like that, away from his main attack down onto Kislev.
Yeah,
20
like
years.
two.
So
Yeah,
we've still
like
got a good chunk to go.
Yeah. We got like a quarter of a century.
Mhm.
The Twisted Tower. So basically, Twisted Tower. This one's kind of fun because it's kind of just a classic, like super bonkers, over the top fortress that breaks the laws of reality. And apparently if you can travel up it, which from the descriptions of it seems like it's pretty much impossible to travel up, but if you can, you get to look out over the realm of chaos itself, which is super cool. And then this one,
and the final detail just amused me. When not at war, okay, I mean that's already an interesting statement.
It has secret lodges.
Chaos warriors and knights meet in secret lodges with their rivals. What the fuck? For within the impossible tower are hidden chambers that serve as shrines to the gods and chapels for their cults. Genuinely bonkers last section without any justification. That one I was like, what the fuck does this even mean? What do you mean when not at war? Well, you're saying that, Cornet guys are sitting down having chats with Zenith sorcerers because, this just so happens to be a nice little room.
Whoa, guys, it's the Sabbath. Chill out.
Yeah.
We gotta
chill
go to
out, man. Oh, okay, I'm cool. Let's sit down because we're currently not at war. Let's have a little chat and a chin wag in this weird twisted tower.
Yeah, that last sentence comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it really does. That one was, I quite like that comment from the Exiled one. Let me just bring that up. Chaos Night, Day Night.
Listen, the dating pool is very desperate in this part of the world. All right.
Yeah, it speaks to the opposite of what they describe happening during the process when you become a Chaos Warrior, where the process is you lose yourself to becoming effectively a mindless automaton in the service of the gods, unless you're of such extraordinary character you happen to hold on to your memories. So this speaks to the opposite. This speaks to rituals. This speaks to actual conversation and diplomacy.
War seasons and peace times.
Yeah, there's definitely something very weird going on. And yes, it does sound quite 40k.
It literally sounds like the Horus Heresy stuff that I'm reading at the moment.
Yeah. It's almost like I've read the Horus Heresy and I'm going to port it over to Warhammer, at least parts of it, and it sort of doesn't fit with both the things they've written and everything else. It's not needed. They can just lodge anywhere.
Yeah.
Very odd. Oh, this one is I love it.
The Silver Tower of Sorcerers. So you have the Silver Tower of Sorcerers, which for those that don't know, plays a very key role in the epic saga that is Egrom von Horseman.
Yeah.
And this one, you could tell they're basically taking the OG Silver Tower and they're fusing it with what AOS has done to the Silver Towers. Where it basically talks about that barely anyone knows where it is. It shifts around, it teleports, it's very hard to find. And it's dominated by a cabal, of sorcerers. And then it is a place that I actually do like, that it serves as a beacon drawing in those who seek to master the arcane arts from all over the world.
Yeah, so why do I particularly like this one? Because the Silver Towers of Niklos, or the Silver Towers of Zinch, they originally came about as part of the very original Chaos stuff. Then into Man of War, we had the Silver Towers of Zinch, which was basically a ship you could use, a big floating tower, and then got dropped into the Liber Chaotica, where the Silver Towers were the central base for the Cabal, which was Egrom von Horseman's lot. And they travel through space and time. Basically, it's a giant TARDIS from Doctor Who. And they've not taken the Cabal out. So basically, there is a hint there that the Cabal from the future is operating in the past.
Which it should be. That's great.
exactly what it should be, and I loved it as a hinter, whether intended or not. It 100% supports Lawhammer, so that made me laugh.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm
That's
easily
great.
pleased. Getting some support, textual support for some of the craziness of Lawhammer is always going to make me smile.
Yeah, and I do love it. Well, and like they're calling out, it's literally the part of the Shadowlands that it's fucky wucky. Like it's traveling through time and space in weird ways. So, some believe it literally flies, which is an AOS reference because those ones do fly.
It's also a Manowar reference because they fly.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
It's old Warhammer that the Silver Towers can fly. In fact, I'll see if I can find a miniature of it just so you can have a look.
Yeah, the Tower of Torment is the next one. So we have this one is super duper far away, past beyond the plane of glass, the chasm of torrents, even the black pit, the ossified hills. So this is a crystal. It's a crystal tower.
Yeah.
And this one I actually like a lot because there's a lot of weirdness to it. Though it also has like a weirdly implied note. So it says, those who have ventured so far north to stand within earshot of the Tower of Torment tell the cacophonous wailing of the tormented souls trapped eternally within the trackless dungeons and of the armored giants that guard the approaches to the Cyclopean gates. For beneath the tower, the ruinous powers keep the souls of every supplicant that stumbled upon the path to glory, earning an eternity of torment as reward for their unworthiness.
Yeah, I only have one major issue with that, and that is really making Chaos a single faction. The tone of this book makes Chaos a one, rather than making Chaos a fragmented, fucked up mess of different egos and wants and needs and gods who care nothing for anything, particularly each other. They hate each other with a passion, yet here all of their souls are kept together in a big fluffy blanket being held in torment forever.
Yeah, they would never share their torturees.
Yeah, fuck like no. And plus we know for a fact that tons of the souls that are on the path of glory become demons, become other things, get left in a completely different place, suggesting that this is with God voice. Was it God voice for this one? Let's say
yes.
No, it does say God damn it. When they use God voice at right the opposite point when they should do. They could have said, and it is said that those who fail.
Yeah, that would have been
here.
perfect. This would have been a perfect. It is said that, or it's rumored that, because that makes it a spooky mystery of like what is actually that screaming down there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think this book, for all of its brilliant ideas, sort of does wrong. It uses the voices in the wrong way at the wrong points several times. And that's one example of it. This is where the God voice should have been fragmented into individual story and myth.
Yep. All right. Now we've got a pretty controversial one, actually.
This one made me go, okay.
Yeah. The Forge of Souls. So for those of you that know the Forge of Souls from like 8th edition or the old Demon books or Total War, it is a part of the Realm of Chaos where the soul grinders are made. Like the soul grinder demons are made there. And it's also where demons are banished to be remade after they have died and failed and stuff. Like there's a ton of lore about the Forge of Souls. And this says, far to the north, beyond even the legendary dwarf hold of Karak Doom, which some claim yet persists. Haha,
nice
Felix reference. Nice, cool. Is the Forge of Souls. This dark citadel is said to be ruled by a prince amongst demons, tasked by his infernal masters with rendering the souls of the damned into the panoply of war worn by their warriors and champions. So this stands contrary to the earlier section because this says the chaos armor is forged out of the dimension of reality by a horrible, seems to be Bellicor or someone, because this almost feels like a Total War Warhammer 3 reference to when it feels like Vashtor. It does feel like Vashtor, but it's some male demon prince. And then it says, true or not, it is here that the armorers of chaos reside, damned by their folly to serve chaos eternally. The smiths toil at the forges within this cursed fortress, churning out the weapons and armor of the legions, the chaos warriors and knights. Okay, so they're not beneath all the other chaos fortresses, apparently?
Yeah, so it's just a lovely set of contradictory nonsense, and I like contradictions in this. I just wish contradictions weren't given with God voice. All of them come from here. It is said that all of them are over here. Oh, okay, wait a minute. You said
this is classic. You shouldn't be able to turn the page and find immediate contradictions, and you do.
Yeah, and just to You're correct.
Chorus are not a
Yvonne.
playable army, so they're not going to talk about
They
them.
are not mentioned. But would they be involved here? Yes. And have they been involved in previous write-ups saying that they make chaos armor? Yes. So the broad language used here, I think, is not doing a good job.
Yeah,
Could be better. Still love to see it there, though. Although, again, interesting that it's been moved out of the realm of chaos into the Shardlands.
Yeah, though to be fair, when you look at the map for it, it is like on an isolated island, like in the middle of nonsense. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, it sits in the cusp. I can live with that, particularly because it is dealing with so much physical stuff, and it's stuff that is physically handed on to mortals. So
doesn't hash around the Forge of Souls. No. The Forge of Souls, if you go read the old lore, which this lore seems to be contradicting for at least for now, it was we didn't know what entity ran it. It was just a entity ran it. This book says it is a prince among demons, which kind of, like I said, kind of feels like they're being like, oh, look, it's Be'lakor from Total War Warhammer 3 when he takes over the Forge of Souls. Whereas it could just be that it is a demon prince. Maybe we'll meet him later. Who knows?
Yeah.
Carrying onward, just in the interest of time, we've got the Banners of Chaos section, which you might look at and go, "Oh, that's pretty art," but I bet there's nothing else. No. This little paragraph right here is sneaky. So this little paragraph that sneaks in here says, "Unlike the Marauder tribes of the Shadowlands, it is not uncommon for the warriors and knights of chaos to have sworn their souls completely to one of the greater powers of chaos," which seems to directly kind of be stating, which is actually kind of reinforced by the whole thing of they're separating them. That the Marauder tribes, while they acknowledge the totemic entities of the gods, tend to be far less common to swear and take the marks of one of them, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's one enormous rewrite of chaos as well, which
yes, it is
interesting. I agree. Interesting. It's not a rewrite that I go, why would you do that? It's one that makes me go, okay, it's complex. There's different forms of how chaos worship is manifested, but there is an enormous push here to divide the chaos warriors from the tribes. This book is doing a lot of heavy lifting for the lore that was not previously the case. This one supports a little bit more like if you have played Total War 2 and you finish off with the entire plot with what's-his-face, the advisor in that, and you see him pull down the book and the book arrives, and then the armies he intended to lead, and they're all chaos warriors, all of them. And in a way that makes you look at it, and then, because I remember the first time I saw the end video for that, and I went, they're all chaos warriors. Every single last one. How? First of all, how? How is this? Other than, obviously, Creative Assembly it makes it easy because you just use one model.
We're doing the best we can. Shut up.
Yeah, shut up, Andy. I'm just using one model because that's what I have. But nevertheless, as someone who's creative, you can't help but go, but what's the justification for this? And the answer for it is finally in this book, and that is that the Chaos Warriors are completely different to all the northern tribes.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool. All right, so I'm just gonna keep aggressively pushing us until
because time's ticking.
The Dark Tongue. This part, it's cute. I do like that they actually call out the difference between like the root words and the actual thing. They have the phonetic roots where they talk about that when you write it down, apparently it loses some of its oomph because it's not the actual original true language, which is interesting. Cool.
This is just reuse of material that's been used again and again.
Yeah, this is a hard copy paste.
This is a hard copy paste from Warhammer 3. That's an old material, and then just very tightly scrunched down. It's been brought up again in multiple editions of Warhammer.
All right, the March of the Warriors, and here they actually advance the plot with the whole thing.
Here we go.
So they talk about the Westerland's woes, which I actually didn't realize because I hadn't really thought about when I sit down and sit that Friedel has been on a 6-year campaign in the Westerland. That is a long fucking campaign.
Yeah, it's pretty long time.
Granted, she's been doing a lot of hit and runs in the first like 2 or 3 years of it, but
as we found out from the previous book, often with very small armies.
Yes. But eventually she builds up her big base in Harlem. This basically just talks about how I actually do like the thing where it kind of talks about that the Empire's reaction was often to do nothing because they would just raid and leave. And it's like, it's poor people, who fucking cares? But she kind of played on their expectations, which allowed her to set up a big base because nobody went to deal with her because they thought she would just take shit and leave.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I like that. So from there, we get to the North Wind Blows, where basically there's notes about that as she is continuing to build up monoliths and make sacrifices and stuff, the winds of magic start to get stronger and stronger and stronger. I do like that they specifically call out that there are seers and sages that are different entities within the Marienburg court that are like, hey, shit's getting a little spooky. We should probably do something.
Mm-hmm. What I particularly liked about this as well is that there is an undercurrent here that the great constant churn of Everchosen withdraw, build up, Everchosen withdraw, is actually a process that's conducted by the great armies of chaos, because they're going down and they're planting chaos monoliths as they go. They're effectively building up the great magics that will eventually pull down and cause the great gates to open. It's not just simply that the gates open, it's that people are doing things to make them open and to make the next attack of a Neverchosen a far more likely outcome. It's all part of one big process. I also didn't like that because it takes away a lot of the mystery, in the same way that very clearly defining the Chaos Warriors. All Chaos Warriors go through this process. Where's the chaos? Where's all of the unpredictability? Where is all the weird Zinch manipulations? Where's all of Slaanesh just going wanton and crazy and mad to excess off in the corner and fucking with everyone's shit? Where's Nurgle festering and all the way through? Where's the Rage of Khorne? It's all lost in a process. And here we have a quite modern view of chaos. It's not something that is chaotic. It's something that follows a very specific process. You have to go through various steps to get the outcome you want. And for the next great chaos incursion, we have people coming down and spreading stuff that makes more magic come from the gates and makes the gates open wider.
Yes, and I do like the cheeky little thing at the last paragraph. That I actually do like it, where it talks about how the wizards and seers are like, things are getting bad, and a lot of the people in Magritta's court are like, you assholes just want us to pay you. Shut up.
Yeah, that was good. I really like that detail. I thought it was a beautiful detail. It's like all the wizards are saying, oi, shit's getting bad. And they're like, you're just, they can't see it. They can't see the giant uprush of magic. They can't see the great storms of magic that are coming in. It's from their perspective, nothing's changing. And the wizards are going, all sort of shit's happening. And if you want me to investigate, you have to pay me a lot because holy shit, it's dangerous. And they're like, yeah, you're just fishing for money. Fuck off. Yeah, I quite like that. Good detail.
Yep. And then we get the Gathering Storm. Also, the second time they have used that as a header in this book.
Yeah, I know.
This is like Miao Ying shows up, and this actually tells us something that we haven't heard in the other books, which it explicitly calls out. We get a little bit more about this later. That her arrival is what causes many of the big bad warriors of chaos to start like going, things are getting interesting. Okay. And they started getting up, which I like. I like that there's a consequence to her coming over here.
Yeah. Nothing's consequence free. Like that.
And then we get one of the craziest drops in this entire goddamn book, which is the Call to War. So the Call to War basically goes into the details of suddenly like whispers of demons start waking up or like alerting a lot of these lords of chaos. They stop fighting each other. They start going, oh, there's an actual interesting foe to fight. I want to fight that dragon. And they start organizing. They start making their way south, hoping that Demonhood might await them if they can kill Miao Ying. But then it says, to the Lords of Chaos, it signified the time was nigh to throw open the monolithic gates of their fortresses and lead their armored horse south in numbers not seen since before the fall of Cardoon the Gloried.
Yep, that is quite a drop.
Cardoon reference in 2026. Holy shit.
Yeah, there we go. That was a thing. So that's previous Everchosen. What's quite interesting about this as well is that there is no reference to Everchosen. There is no reference to the fact that Everchosens and pretty much all of their various discussions are always those who have gone through some form of process only as well, pardon me, which is super funny because they're adding process to everything else, but they're almost removing the process of who becomes the mighty leader of them all. It's an interesting rebalancing of it all.
Yeah, there's kind of the last sentence is actually kind of weird as well, where it says, in the wake of their harbinger, Friedel the Chainmaker, the blood of a Cathayan dragon would be spilled, marking the ascension of an anointed one. So, which, according to the phrasing they used earlier, means that they believe this will determine who the Everchosen will be.
Yeah, it basically suggests that Miao Yang is going to fall. But it's not going to be Miao Yang, is it? It's going to be what's-her-face. Oh, no, who's it going to be? No, it'll be...
We'll have to say, I genuinely believe that Miao Ying is going to be deeply wounded at the end of this
that
saga.
would make sense. So we've got ourselves a bit of searing going on there. This is the future we're heading towards.
I was for those that don't know who Cardoon is, by the way, this reconfirms he's still canon, which was kind of up in the air for a while. Cardoon is the Everchosen that was in Mordheim.
Yeah. So 300 years before this, 280.
Yeah, and he got possessed by Be'lakor, which is what kind of fucked him up.
Be'lakor fucks it all up like he does every time.
Yeah. So I'm actually kind of glad to see him reconfirmed as the last Everchosen, because that's genuinely cool.
And this is one of those ones where it wouldn't have surprised me if they'd never referenced it, or if they just made up something new and we would have complained. And we'd have gone, oh, look, they've just rewritten the thing that came before. Did they have to do that? They've invalidated Mordheim's core plot. What the fuck? Did they have to do this? They've done it. Oh, well. Yeah. But they didn't do that, which is actually for the Arcane Journals pretty rare, because they have overwritten lots of other things, but they didn't overwrite that. It made me happy.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say about this that I love is that if you're someone that just likes the kind of the world building, this actually tells us that the Mordheim crisis was a lot cooler than I initially thought, because this flat out says there was a great chaos invasion during the Mordheim crisis.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
That was always what it should have been, but it got lost in the specific focus on just Mordheim. The whole concept and build-up of what the Everchosen was, and as it was then, the Child of Light as well, the counterbalancing point to the Everchosen. That clearly is giant chaos fight, and that's largely where the sequel of Mordheim was sort of going, but never sort of happened. So yeah, it's nice to see that that's being reaffirmed. It's good.
Yeah, because so that for anyone that loves that era, this means it wasn't just everyone's skirmishing the ruins of the city. It means shit was bad everywhere, like really, really bad, which is cool. From there, we're about to get back to Super Chat stuff. I'm just gonna get to the map, so we got like 4 more sections. The Storm Dragon advances. This basically just this covers a lot of what happened in the prior books, but this finally takes us to genuinely advancing that campaign, where it tells us that Miao Ying arrives at Harlem, which is where Friedel's big fortress is. But word starts to come in that Chaos Warriors are attacking fucking everywhere. They're attacking Bretonia, they're attacking Nordland, and this actually caught me off guard in this book, because I didn't think they were going to do a big Warrior of Chaos invasion 24 years before the big final battle.
Arrival. Yeah. I mean, it really does give a feeling of things building up much more violently than had been built up in previous versions of how one of the Everchosen attacks comes. And I like that. It's good. Yeah, particularly if you look at the End Times. The End Times didn't have this.
No, the End Times almost happens at the drop of a hat, which is how all the prior Everchosens kind of felt.
Yes, it had. Yeah, I like it. It's nice.
Yeah, this is nice. This feels like a very believable, like, yeah, Chaos is going to be, like, there are Warrior of Chaos hordes attacking.
Stab and attack. Yeah.
Yeah, long before he shows up to start dealing death blows.
Yep.
Which is great. And then we get the second Battle of Harlem, which finally deals with the giant cliffhangers from several books about what happens. And big surprise, Miao Ying curb stomps the fuck out of Harlem.
Yeah,
like, it's a fight, but she curb stomps them pretty thoroughly. So they basically tear it down. They tear down all her monoliths. Friedel's completely defeated. She does escape. But her army is shattered. She is defeated. They run away. And Harlem, all the chaos things get torn down, and they start trying to rebuild it as fast as they can, because word is already coming that new invasions are on the way. Spooky.
And again, let me reinforce that one of the core aspects of chaos is again neutered here in a way that I think is actually beneficial. One of the core aspects of previous invasions is basically when they pass through, you be fucked because the land corrupts, everything about them corrupts. They bring corruption with them. The taint of chaos is on everything. This one is taking a completely different route where it's like, yeah, nah, fuck it. We can just rebuild immediately. It'll be fine. We'll do some magic and some rituals and stuff, and we can get past this, which allows for much better storytelling in some regards, but also leaves open the door for there will be all sorts of potential corruption in the area, which could also be tapped for stories. All too often, chaos is pitched like radiation. And if you go to Chernobyl to this day, you're kind of fucked. And the idea being that wherever chaos has come, it gets dosed in chaos radiation. You're kind of fucked if you go there later. It's full of and dark energies and chaos energies. That has been completely overwritten here to a degree, allowing for things to rebuilt, cleansed, and you move on. And I think that makes for a better Warhammer story, because if the first one was actually true and chaos completely fucked everything it passed over, they'd have won already.
Yeah, like this makes sense with the way the world should work, of that there's push and pull. There are forces that can push chaos back. So then we get into the aftermath, which the aftermath the aftermath continues the story and actually ties in the Beastmen narrative, which basically explains that because the Beastmen killed Orion and won the war in the Larlorn Forest, they are now surrounding the forces of Cathay and Marienburg in Harlem. So now Harlem's about to be under attack by a giant Beastman horde, which is like, oh, okay, that's a nice consequence to the Beastman storyline. And we also get notes about all the places that are under attacks, and Miao Ying basically fucks off. She gets with her fastest ships and she heads to Fort Nordenschloss, to basically try and get there in time to prevent them from getting absolutely murdered. Because they don't realize the size of what's coming. And the thing I do like is I'm hoping if this is building up to the big campaign finale, which is that Miao Ying is going to be terribly wounded, I think they are doing a good job of she is running herself ragged. She's trying to be too many places at once. Her forces are constantly getting smaller and smaller and smaller. This really feels like I'm in my head. I am praying this builds up to. I am still hopium that the reason Galrach is even in the Warriors of Chaos Arcade Journal, even though he hasn't showed up yet, is that he's going to wake up and he's going to join this upcoming big fight. And he's the one that's going to wound Miao Ying terribly, because frankly, he's one of the only things that's big enough to do it. And it would be such a good use of the character.
Yeah, I mean, because he's been barely used effectively in anything, let's be honest, other than his very cool opening story for his introduction. Might I just also call out this little bit for Chaos in the Old World, because it's a lovely reference to the Chaos in the Old World game, which was released by FFG. And it's a great wee game where you get to play one of the Chaos Gods trying to destroy the Old World. So I'm always happy to see a Chaos in the Old World reference.
Yep, which the final paragraph. So this tells us that a bunch of Empire towns, some of which are very famous in kind of the modern lore, but also some ones that I think all of these are known locations in the modern lore.
Well, like Emskrank and such, like, well, it's, yes, kinda. Yeah.
They're about to have a notable story beat in their town's histories, because some of them are probably about to get absolutely fucked. Because
they're all going to get raised.
Yeah, so they talk about big chaos army show up. We get the notes of, in particular, Emskrank, new Emskrank, totally fucked. It literally ends with they're about to get absolutely ravaged by a big, powerful chaos sorcerer on a dragon, and this is not the place Miao Ying is heading. So these guys are super boned.
Yep.
So it kind of ends with,
now, don't worry the fact that New Emskrank isn't founded for another 200 years, though.
Yeah, well, maybe. Wait, oh no, is this New Emskrank or is it just Emskrank?
No, it's New Emskrank. Yeah, I just checked it.
This should have just been Emskrank, and that's why the new one is the new one, because this one is just going to get flattened.
Yeah.
That would have been, why did they do that? That would have been the smart way to do that.
Because they didn't know. They didn't know it was a new location that was added to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay First Edition.
Yep. And then finally, we get the Battle of Fort Nordenschloss, which is the cliffhanger for this book, because for some fucking reason, all of these books end on cliffhangers. And it's basically that after Innskrink has been sacked and is totally fucked, the Chaos Horde that sacked it heads towards this fort. The Beastmen start surrounding it, and the Osterlanders, which I still don't like, the Osterlanders. I fucking hate it. Osterland is so dumb. It really is. Prepare for a siege, and Miao Ying is desperately hoping to make it in time to help them fight.
Yep.
And that's the end of that particular storyline. So we're gonna grab some super chats, and then we'll grab just the last few little bits and pieces.
While he's grabbing that, I'll just say for the story, I mean, it's fun enough. It's progressing. It's doing some stuff, and we have highlighted quite a lot of slightly daft things, but overall, it's fine. It's quite good. I enjoyed it.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely like in the better half of the Arcane Journals.
Definitely.
And boy, howdy. We'll get into it in a second. Stephen Lucas, Chaos W, but Sigmar, cool selling point. Unfortunate 40k. Sure.
Chaos Warriors, but Sigmar. I'm not quite sure.
Chaos Warriors, but Sigmar, cool selling point. Unfortunately, it's 40kism as well. Yeah. The Exiled one. If you had to pick a spot for the Dark Fortress Monastery route, where would you put it in the world? Dark Fortress Monastery route?
Dark Fortress Monastery route.
Exile one, feel free to elaborate on this in a comment, and we'll try and answer that. I'm not sure.
Dark Fortress Monastery route. I really feel like I'm missing something obvious.
Temporary off topic, but I'm going through the Archaon duology right now, and he has just gotten the Slayer of Kings and met Village. Thanks as always for the stream. Suggestion for future stream about Altdorf gangs. That would be fun. That would be a fun stream.
Yeah.
That could definitely be on a vote at some point. Captain Magma, due to the Eastern sounding name of Zambajin, could it be possible that the variety of dragon that the Cathaian dragons are may have once occupied it before the Cataclysm? A draconic city? I possibly. I doubt it, but possibly.
It's as good a thing as anything. Sure.
Yeah. David Whitfield. Not so surprised in Timosaur. End Times looks good. My good Vlad is going to have his work cut out for him saving the Empire. My playthrough, my Vlad. Hope to see you on the other side. Hell yeah, brother. Hell
good luck with Vlad. May he carve a new empire out of the mess that is the End Times.
Yep. Honestly, it's the best. He would be very popular with the people so long as he succeeds.
Yeah. Lunch forever.
Any Tzeentch lore in the old world needs time nonsense. It fits with its Eldritch aesthetic. Sorcerers forced to scheme against themselves. Always a fun
All you need to do is say time and alternate worlds, and suddenly all of Games Workshop's messy writing works.
It's perfect. Flawless.
Yeah, perfect and flawless.
Stephen Lucas, like the Chaos Divide, but also there is an invisible force that unifies and directs one of many Chaos undivided cultures that not even the gods.
No. So you like the idea that chaos is divided, but you also like the idea of this invisible force that pulls them all together. I'm not keen on that. I'm not too bothered by them being anthropomorphized and them being far more human than they might first appear. Some writers take them in that direction completely. But I am bothered by the idea that they are being manipulated by a force even vaster than them. It just doesn't feel very Warhammer.
Yeah, I will say that I don't mind it as a hypothetical in universe, like the philosophy of the Great Beast. The philosophy of the Great Beast is basically that there is a grander overall scheme or a grander force that will unify everything, but it should be explicitly an in-universe thing and not a concept stated by God Voice.
Yeah.
Ricky Chapman, we find it funny how much our Chaos Lord character from our Wolfrip campaign would hate these Chaos Warriors and would kill them and use what's left of such pathetic souls as fuels for our hell cannons. Yeah, because once again, I fully agree with everything Andy said of if this was about like just the Tower of Torment and how their Chaos Warriors work, it would be a 10 out of 10. The fact that they're trying to be like, this is all of the Warriors of Chaos. And I'm like, okay, I could literally look at another page in this same book and say, no, they're not.
Not these ones and not this one. And yeah.
Benjamin Frazier, welcome to New It's Greg. 3 days without raising.
Yep.
Joe Pichan, Joe Pitchin? one of those, please let me know. Sorry. Hello, Andy and Sotek. What's the difference between Destroyer and the Blade of Kokaklia, or however you want to pronounce that? Also, do the effects of the Scrolls of Caden on monsters have limitations? So I'll go first, and Andy will add in anything else that he wants to.
Cool.
So
Let's just sit back.
Destroyer is the weapon that Malekith forged that has a chance. It's not guaranteed, but it has a chance to destroy a magic item that it strikes against. And in the narrative, they actually did an okayish job reflecting that until it went up against the Sword of Cain, where it shattered because the Sword of Cain was too big and bad. The Blade of Kokakli, on the other hand, says, fuck you, I don't even have to roll. You just don't get to do anything. Go fuck yourself.
Destroyer is a much weaker version that, depending on the version you go with, can sort of eat up magic items and sometimes powers and use them. But the Blade of Kokachila is
the way he says it's
so much bigger.
Yeah, that thing is
so
monstrous.
Much. It's horrendous as written. I love it.
Yeah, and then the Scroll of Caden, do they have limitations? Yes, they're very hard to use, and they almost explicitly require a storm of magic level of magic to power them. Like, they're really strong, but like, even if you have one, you know how to use it, and you know a wizard's strong enough to use it, doesn't mean you can use it. You need like the right set of circumstances to harness its power and unleash it, which is what A, makes them so valuable, but B, makes them so dangerous.
Yeah, that.
Because you might think you used it, and then the monster goes, hey, what are you doing there? I'm gonna kill you now. Mr. Samurai Guy, off topic, but could Gorst beat Nagash with Tretch's lucky skull help, new Lord of Undeath? So, okay.
Sure.
Yeah. He's got a 1 in 3 chance that anything that the guy throws at him just somehow misses him due to sheer dumb luck. So I guess.
I think the answer to that is almost empirically yes. The guy is doomed.
So you're saying there's a chance. Also, thank you, Andy. Joe, thank you again. Also, thank you, Andy, for drilling into my skull the importance of hiring a good editor for my book I published last June. Was worth it, though. Yay!
Marvelous. Delighted both in the publishing and obviously also on the benefits of a good editor. I mean, a bad editor is not worth hiring, but yeah, a good editor is always worthwhile because you think your text is great. The editor comes in and says, you know, you could have done this, you could have done this. This bit's great. Is there anything we do to focus it, make it better? And this just makes no sense at all. And you're like, but it does because, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, let's make the book better. Editors are great.
Yep. All right, so we got 10 minutes to get through the rest of this book. Luckily, it's mostly rules, so we'll fly through it. The Winds of Magic Gather. This section is fucking awesome. It brings back really dangerous miscasts that are actually super fun.
Fucking great.
And it's just awesome. I've talked to a lot of people that have used these rules along with some of the other rules we're about to talk about, and they say it makes Magic actually significantly more fun. And less overpowered because it can actually kill you by blowing up in your face, which it should.
Yep.
Channeling the Winds of Magic. This is actually another fun thing. You get channeling dice depending on the levels of your wizard, and you could spend it as if you're playing the roleplay game, which is so cool. You could buff a spell, you can extend the range of a spell, you can re-roll a dice. Like, this is actually kind of cool.
This is like my old Rads rules that I sort of siphoned into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and to see it hit Warhammer made me go, holy shit, that's basically my rules. Ha! Made me smile in the wind.
They're not super strong, but if you use them in the right circumstances, they're really, really solid. Very
really
fun.
like that.
And then Mastering Arcane Magic, they brought back the fucking magic cards. They brought them back from the good old days, and you can actually buy the deck of cards. It's very pretty.
From Warhammer 4th and 5th edition, if you wish to know the editions.
Yeah. So for those that remember the days of like the escape card. You basically have it in the that's on the Sorceress Ruses. That's the next page.
Yeah.
So the Arcane Magic ploys, these are very, very fun. These are basically little things that you're able to do to fuck with enemy wizards, and they fuck with you back. Which actually the lore tidbits on these are probably worth going over very briefly, because they do some fun world building about how magic works. So you have like Towering Conjuration. The winds of magic shift and flow heavensward, bearing the words of the wizard's conjuration far above the battlefield in a towering column of magic visible to wizards far and wide. With a gesture, the wizard unleashes the spell's power, striking at unseen and distant foes. That's very great. Makes it where you have infinite range on your spell and don't need line of sight. Very cool. Unseen assailant. With the words of their conjuration still hanging in the air, the wizard senses the presence of another, their astral form suddenly upon them, its spectral fingers unraveling their spell. Unable to locate their enemy, the wizard is forced to look on helplessly as the specter unbinds their magic. Fun fact, I was watching an episode of Lawhammer about them in Telepine where something like this basically happens.
Yeah. A lot of this, just so that you can understand its genesis and where it comes from, a lot of this is strongly influenced by old Warhammer 4 and 5 magic theory and how it works. And it's super cool to see it being repitched and re-updated for a new version of the game. This entire section just made me smile.
Yeah, duplicitous duplication. Sensing a momentary shift in the winds of magic, the wizard begins to carefully utter a spell. Even as the final syllable leaves their lips, the winds twist and billow, creating a momentary vortex into which the wizard is able to repeat and duplicate their spell. Timey shenanigans in my winds of magic? Delightful.
Brilliant.
Twist of fate. Manipulating the winds of magic is fraught with danger, and even the most accomplished of wizards is not immune to its peril. A misspoken word, an incorrect gesture, a momentary lapse in concentration, all can cause magic to break free, often with disastrous and deadly consequences. So this lets you reroll a miscast, which you might get a better result, you might get a worse result.
Might get a worse one, yeah.
Winds of fortune. The winds of magic are fickle, and when a rival wizards duel, it is not unknown for them to gather around one, lending strength to their attempts to dispel the magic of the other. At such times, a lizard can do little but hope for an imminent change in fortune. Cute. Faded conjuration. Sometimes the winds of magic seem inexplicably attracted towards the words of a wizard's spell, clustering around it and infusing those words with power. At such times, a wizard can find the completion of a spell uncannily easy, and the risks of a fatal miscast seem to dwindle to nothing.
Love it.
And these are, like, even if you're doing the roleplay game, these are really fun scenarios that your wizards can get thrown into.
Yeah, they're good story building potentials from all of these. I like them.
Fortuitous intervention. At times, the winds of magic flow erratically, and whilst an accomplished wizard may be able to master them sufficiently to cast a spell, that spell can seem a weak and insubstantial thing. At such times, their rivals are able to unbind the spell with surprising ease.
Mm-hmm.
Winds of power. In a brief moment of arcane stillness, the wizard senses a imminent surging of the winds of magic. Carefully, they begin to recite the words of an incantation, hoping to time its completion with the sudden gale of power they anticipate, hoping not to be consumed by the magic's wrath. That is such a cool fucking concept of a wizard trying to wait to like catch a wave, with its implied dangers. Like, that's such a cool idea of like being like, I gotta catch it. Then unerring confidence, so filled with trust in their own abilities that the wizard hurls spells with careless abandon. But such bravado seems to be working. Although their spells miscast regularly, the wizard goes unpunished by the power they mishandle. Hilarious. Dissolution. Noticing the
almost on my favorite one.
Noticing the reluctance in the winds of magic to serve their rival, the wizard turns their mind towards unraveling their spell. With alarming ease, the magic binding the spell begins to come apart, causing the enemy wizard's conjuration to falter and fail. And then last but certainly not least, absolute power! Sensing a turning in the currents of the winds of magic, the wizard is quick to act. Binding the raw magic to their wield, they wield absolute power for just the briefest of moments, granting them mastery over the arcane realm and dominance over their rivals. Yeah,
that's the equivalent of the old total power that you used to get back in the old Warhammer 4 and 5 editions, and was sort of passed over into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition as well. I think I might have even called it total power in that. I can't remember. I need to go check the book.
Yeah,
I think I might call it as well. When you get critical.
Yeah, when Elric uses his fate point to crit cast spell.
Yeah, exactly that. Absolute power!
And then the Sorcerer's Ruses. These, I believe, are the cards. So you have Escapology. which is fun. A good reference to a lot of old things, which are different ways that wizards try to survive. Demonic assailments. This one is fucking terrifying. Using their enemy spell against them, the wizard opens a portal to the ether through which demonic spirits surge. The enemy wizard grapples against unseen assailants that would steal away a fragment of their soul, sealing it within the realm of chaos and torturing it for eternity. Jesus!
Love it.
Spell Thief. The wizard reaches through the ether to strip all knowledge of a spell from a rival's mind. Their attack complete, the spell is flayed from the enemy's memory, leaving no trace. Very cool description of how that could work. Duplicitous Mirror. With great cunning, the wizard confounds the senses of the rival, who twists and contorts their own magic, enthusiastically misdirecting it against themselves and their allies. If you did that to a player in roleplay, that would be the most fucked up thing you could do to one of your PCs. Oh yeah,
Brilliant, no?
yeah, you're casting your great fireball spell. Yeah, okay. How much damage? Okay, yeah, you did that to yourself and your party. Magical Siphon. The wizard redirects the winds of magic away from their rival's conjuration with such certain force they seem to vanish, rendering all of the enemy's magic powerless. And then Spell Eater. The wizard summons a ravenous etheric entity, visible only to those with the mage sight. The incorporeal creature hungrily gobbles up the magical power of an enemy wizard's spell.
See, I love all this shit because it's normally the sort of thing you only get inside the roleplay game. And indeed, I have written and made rules that are almost identical to large chunks of that for the roleplay game at various points. And I'm loving that it's in the battle game. I really love what this offers. It's a far more sophisticated and varied look at how magic can manifest in the battlefield than has been seen since Warhammer 5th edition. Before that, it's basically just dice rolls and away you go. After that, pardon me. So I think this is great. It's really cool.
Yep. Then we get the very random 2-page spread that really feels like it was just tossed in here because it doesn't. I don't know why it's even at this part. It's very strange. Where it talks about the Chainmaker's monolith. So we get a random Friedel drop again, where it basically spells out that her explicit plan was to build a bunch of monoliths towards the heart of the Empire because she's trying to direct storms of magic down into the Empire for causing chaos and
that's a thing. Sure.
Stuff. Which, like,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Yep. Then Champions of the Ruinous Powers. This is basically a new rule set that allows you to create your own custom character for leading a combined army of Warriors of Chaos and Beastmen. Yeah. And you can either have a Beastman champion or a human champion, and they also give you a new mutations chart. Cool. And then from there, we're on to the last parts, which is the Hordes of Chaos. So for this, they basically talk about like, oh yeah, when chaos gets big and bad, they gang up. Like Beastmen will fight alongside warriors, will fight alongside marauders. Whoop-de-doo.
I mean, the whole point of that is meant to be the Everchosen that does that. So I was a little bit, they're making it a bit too easy. They're making chaos so monogod in some respects. And I don't like the lack of characterization that chaos has because of that, but I like aspects of it. But I'd have preferred if the build up to all the chaos attacks would have been uncalled for and wanton chaos with everything all over the place, and then the Everchosen arrives and they bind together and lock together. The Beastmen are working alongside, the Slanesh working alongside, Khorne working alongside, tribesmen working alongside chaos warriors. That would have been cool, but they've taken a slightly different angle.
Yeah, I wish they had pitched it just slightly differently, because obviously this is just an excuse to run the Hordes of Chaos, which is the especially the sixth edition, where actually this would be the fifth edition,
fifth
version. Where you basically would just take all Chaos Boys in the same build.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, which is fine. And you basically just get yada 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 stuff. They do have the untrust, like it does talk about they have like the untrusting allies rule, so you're not allowed to combine. Like a Beastman can't lead a warriors unit and yada yada, because they don't like each other.
It's still weak sauce.
Yeah, which it's like, then why make the army in the first place? But whatever. Then out of fucking nowhere, this book goes, by the way, here's the cult magister from the roleplay game as a character type, and here are the chaos cultists as a unit type. And everyone went, huh? What?
Yeah.
They're hilariously weak, but have some kind of like cute gimmicks. They're garbage. They're super garbage. But like in a fun way.
Yeah, only 55 points.
Yeah, the only thing they are very cheap. They are appropriately like worth absolute shit.
Yeah.
But like the Cult Magister has some kind of fun rules, like he can literally murder people in his own unit in order to get buffs to spellcasting. Cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
The only thing I don't like for this is I really don't like the deep-rooted corruption paragraph on the Chaos Cultist thing, because it in God voice it opens with the line, "Pity for those touched by the mutating power of chaos is misplaced. For the touch of the ruinous powers corrupts and warps the mind and soul as well as the body, driving mutants to commit acts of evil and to prey those upon those around them." That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's hardcore bullshit.
It's demonstrably bullshit as well, and it's not good writing. It's basically, you know,
evil,
it's now time to kill some babies. Let's go kill babies and children, and because they are demonstrably evil, there's literally nothing they can do about it. It's also against so many versions of Warhammer where it tends to have moral complexity, where some mutants, because they have literally nowhere else to go, turn to chaos because they have been abandoned.
Which it has the audacity to bring that up in like the last 2 or 3 sentences.
Yep, exactly. And then flipped on the others. It just upsets me. I'm losing
like, my. Yeah, it's not that part. Like whoever wrote that, shame on you. That's genuinely bad.
Yeah, it is.
That's the worst thing in this entire book, in my opinion.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. Then we get to the items, and these items are moderately powerful. These items, the main reason most people bought this book is because these items can be taken by everybody, even though they are very chaos leaning, which is interesting. They are for everyone. So a lot of this are items that have a dark leaning, but they are explicitly designed for everybody to be able to take them. Rather amusingly, including the demon-blooded steed, which literally everybody is running because it makes your mounts way better. So there are like Bretonians on hippogriffs with demon-blooded steed, and like lizardmen on carnosaurs with demon-blooded steed, and it says, whilst there are many noble steeds in the old world whose size and strength comes from a thoroughbred lineage, other beasts owe their prowess to something far more nefarious, which I actually don't hate.
I genuinely love these sections, and by comparison to the previous book that we'd gone through, where the items were dull as dishwasher in their quest for being generic and useful, these are also generic and useful, and they're dripping with character. They can manifest in so many different ways, and they are also deeply fucking corrupt. The demon-blooded steed is a beautiful artifact because everyone wants to use it. Everyone wants to use it, and they do.
Yep.
And if you're playing any sort of campaign of the old world, that's where the person who's running it goes, well, everyone who's used that one, that's going to have some consequences. And that's cool.
Yeah, like so many of these are so fun where you can understand why normal people would be using them, even though they're clearly chaos artifacts of like the fucking let's see. Like Sword of Reaving. Though the blade pulses with fell runes when it sheds blood, I'll just go over all of them. Fuck it. The power it grants makes
for all. For all.
God, we're out, and we got
we're out of time already. No, don't do the Sword of Reaving though.
yeah. Sorry. The power it grants makes such foreboding omens easy to overlook. Great.
Yeah, just great.
Oh, just no. Okay. Grim verdict. Those who carry this great hammer believe they are filled with righteous fervor, but in truth, their wrath comes from a much fouler source.
And I love that.
Good.
That's just brilliant. And we've got ourselves a clearly cornate, tainted weapon. Yet everyone thinks it's a good thing. And that, I think, speaks to Warhammer far better than many of the other new generic items, particularly if we look at the last book that have been added. I genuinely think these are great.
Infernal Familiar. The demonic familiars of chaos are able to take on many forms, appearing as helpful assistants as they weave their deceitful webs of corruption. Great.
This is great. Just great. I mean, these sentences are doing a lot of heavy lifting. There's generally only a single sentence for each one, and every single time they've landed. It's good. I love them.
So overall, one of the better arcade journals. It still has its problems, and that
Yeah.
mutant line was absolutely fucking atrocious. Otherwise, pretty decent.
Yeah, this is a book that I think is good. Does it have problems? From my personal perspective, yes. Do I wish it had been edited differently? Yes. I do in terms of my troll groups and but that nevertheless doesn't change the fact that this is one of the better journals. To make it even better, it would have been lovely if it had been re-edited with the line of, this is somebody who's using it for the first time. Can we make sure that everything cleanly is introduced, explained, and there's at no point any doubt what's going on for someone who picks up the book for the first time and just goes, oh, fuck it, I'm not reading the background. It's too complicated and I don't understand it. If that's what's happened, and it will happen, you have lost your reader and they're only interested in the rules. You done fucked up. And some of the background is not written with the clarity required to ensure that it'll land for everyone. Some of the background, however, is also super cool in that it nods to older versions of Warhammer. It nods to different versions of Warhammer. It suggests that many of them not only still exist, but they're core components of the setting. All of that stuff I like, while simultaneously, I really disliked how the Chaos Warriors were handled and turned into all Chaos Warriors are this great faction that sits at the top of the world waiting to be activated by whichever portent is there, and they come down as a completely separate group to the Chaos Marauders or the Chaos Tribesmen or whatever. They are the uber Chaos Warriors of the North, and I didn't like that as this is the only type that exists now. It was a bit, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yep. All right. Last few super chats, then we got to get out of here. Scion. Oh, hi, Scion. Final Fantasy 14 still at the docket for this weekend here, or have other issues forced to return to be pushed back for a bit?
As I mentioned earlier on in the stream, which I presume you missed, and my mother's going into hospital tomorrow again, and it's looking really grim. I'm actually really excited that I'm doing this stream because there was a chance that it was going to be going in today. So I don't know what the answer is to this. It's going to be entirely reliant upon what happens with my mum. I will get back the second I can, pardon me, because I really want to. God, I need some time off.
Yep. Good. Everyone send your good vibes, or if you're of the type, prayers are genuinely appreciated. Sign of the Emperor. If you could add any additional lores of magic to Warhammer Fantasy / the Old World / Total War, what would you each want? I'd want at least 3 more. The lores of Athel Loren trolls from the Old World, and a new one for the Famir. I'm gonna snipe some of Andy's before he's gonna say them. Of that, there are some old color lores from back in the day that would work really, really well into the modern lore of even, especially with the fact that like the Old World is abandoning the concept of like color magic. Like there are some really fun old lores lying around that they could go crazy with exploring. And I hope that they do. When it comes to like what would I want in Total War specifically, for me, the lore of Athel Loren and the lore of trolls, those are the big ones that I want for Total War. And then I think I would shut up probably, at least for the foreseeable future. But like if you go back and look at like the orange lore of magic or the pink lore of magic, there's some pretty cool ones out there.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of that from that. Let's just do something completely different. Something that'll never happen, but it would be quite fun. Something specific for gnomes. Not just illusionism in terms of illusionism or grey magic, but perhaps the lesser known version of it, dark Mabon and the black magic that they use, the dark magic that they use, which would be very differently angled to what the dark elves use, for example, or generally all those other dark elf spellcasters use.
Getting different interpretations of genuine, like it's called dark magic, but it's a new interpretation would be so nice.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest disservices that GW's ever done is being like only dark elves can use dark magic. And everyone else, you're like,
except when the wood elves have it, or
except when the wood elves have it. But it's like, I'm pretty sure the vast majority of factions across the world could figure out how to use dark magic.
Dark magic was a core component for all species at one point, and all necromancers were using dark magic, and that got twisted and changed into dark magic is now the high magic, but for dark spells and stuff. Chaos users used to all use it. Yeah, I'm not the hugest fan of that.
Benjamin Frazier, love the return of the escape card, but I'd like to imagine that for every wizard who pulls it off, there's an ethereal graveyard of hundreds who almost did.
Yeah, that's the wrong with chaos.
Yeah,
I've escaped. Oh fuck! Splat.
Yeah, 100%. Sunny Emperor, I'd also not be opposed to some non-chaos divine lores of magic being added for other races. Maybe if Marienburg became its own faction rather than race, they could have the lores of Manon and Stromfells, Vampire Coast, Lore of the Deeps being Stromfells and Undeath. So vampires, I would say, should not have divine magic.
No, they
that
shouldn't.
would be very, vampires cannot do that. That's a very, they cannot in big, bold letters do that. But if they wanted to make a priest of Manon for Marienburg, which is certainly possible, and there have been files floating around suggest that might happen one day. What would be cool is if the Sartosa faction, led by Arnessa, got their own flip on it, which was a priest of Stromfells.
I think that'd be cool. Yep, that'd be cool. And I hard agree, Sion. I think that non-chaos divine lores would speak to the Warhammer world in a way that is hinted at in multiple books, but never expressed frightfully well on the battlefields. For example, after the time of Magnus, the colleges of magic were shut, closed down, because there were wizards. Sigmar says wizards are bad, right? So these guys suck. And they sucked for a couple of real reasons, because cities burned and things went wrong and they made some mistakes. And the cult said, you don't need them because you got us. So what does that mean? What were they able to do against wizards? How could they stop chaos wizards, cultist wizards, wizards from other factions who are clearly attacking? And they believed they could do something about it. Now, admittedly, the Battle of Grutzer Marsh showed them they were completely wrong, and they needed their wizards because they go to war with Marienburg. That's the Empire goes to war with Marienburg and lose hard because they have high elf magic support, and all of the divine wizards were basically flattened. They were no use. They went, oh, maybe we should open the colleges again because maybe we need that shit. But nevertheless, the argument won the day, which means that they have something that is definitely worth sharing. So I think that developing all of that with something more than just I'm a wolf priest, so I get +1 attack or some equivalent would be nice.
And with that, we're done.
We're done.
Geomancy for Slaunt.
Geomancy, of course. Fucking hell. But a lot of Geomancy is super slow shit that takes, months to cast or even years.
Yeah. But would it be cool to just have like a fuck you, here's a mountain under you spell? Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, totally fucking would. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, but from both of us. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that immensely. The books kick ass, chew gum, but do have what we believe are flaws. And most of those flaws are in the way they've tried to convey the information rather than the information itself from our perspective. Rather than using God voice for some places, it would be better to use in-character voice. Rather than using in-character voice in some places, it would be better to just simply state it. There's some weird editing choices. And those editing choices are also, largely from our perspective, not best designed for beginners. That needs to always be at the back of their minds. But overall, great books. If you're only interested in the lore, then the campaign book is the campaign book is the one to go for, actually, but not the Battle March one, which is much less the case.
Yeah. So overall, I will say highlight for me, getting Zenbai Jin reconfirmed as an actual thing in the setting. Awesome.
Yeah, that's nice.
Cardoon the Gloried being a character that still exists.
Nice.
Awesome. Those are great. Those were highlights for me. Scion, best wishes to you and your mother, Andy. Hope you take the turn for the better and you get your time off of 14 soon.
It has been a very difficult few months for me. Her being in hospital for 2 months was obviously not great, and her going back again is, if anything, even less great. Particularly given that we were hopeful that wouldn't happen, and it has. If we're lucky, she'll be in and out again, like a yo-yo, and I'll be like, oh, there's nothing to worry about. But I'm a fatalist at heart. So who knows? Other than that, got any other streams?
Prepare for the worst.
Mention? Yeah, totally. You got any other streams you want to mention, Mr. Ryan?
Yes. So I will. Speaking of Final Fantasy 14, I will be playing Final Fantasy 14 here, probably in about an hour and a half.
Brilliant.
And then lots more streams to come. Tomorrow is going to be a big Total War Warhammer 40,000 day. But yeah, shit's popping. There's way too much to do, and we will hopefully be here on Sunday for more Fantasy
Thursday.
Lorebeards. Thursday, sorry. We will hopefully be here Thursday for Fantasy Lorebeards. Do keep an ear to the ground on that, where we will be discussing Nagash in Age of Sigmar.
Age of Sigmar this Thursday. On my side, after Age of Sigmar on Thursday, we'll be heading over on the Friday to Lawhammer, as always. And this episode, not that it's necessarily giving anything out, is called Share or Get Through the Eternal. No idea what that means. But bluntly...
Oh, no.
Bluntly, it's going to be bad. I'm really looking forward to this episode. So, assuming that one of us doesn't die before Friday, or my mum doesn't summon me up north, that'll be happening on the Friday. Then on the Saturday, we're still deciding behind the scenes what to do for the next Inside the Rookery, but it's looking very likely we're going to continue our conversation on about John Blanche and his legacy on the industry, because we didn't cover it that much with our episode with Jez Goodwin last Saturday, and we'd like to move on to the legacy that John Blanche has had upon fantasy and science fiction to this day, ranging from many more computer games than you might realize that draw upon his ethos. So that's probably going to be this Saturday, although we're still discussing it because there's another potential guest who slipped out, might slip back in. Yeah, it's always tough with Inside the Rookery. And then Sunday, what are we doing on Sunday?
On Sunday, we are officially doing, interestingly, the Firemouth.
Firemouth. Yes, of course we are. I
We're
remember.
talking about big fuck you volcano.
Yes, Firemouth. I couldn't remember which one won the ogres. Firemouth. Oh, this is going to be awesome.
All right, and with that, it is time for us to go. Thank you all so much for the support. Hope you're all having a lovely day, weekend, week, whatever, wherever you may be in the world. Don't forget to like the stream, please. We really appreciate it. And leave a comment and all that jazz. It helps support us. And then we'll see you when we see you.
Hopefully this Thursday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.